What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was a neglected outcast but met a new dark prince of the underworld who offered him power? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. The village hidden in the leaf was in a state of utter panic and chaos. The village looked as if it was engulfed by hell itself. All hell had broken loose when they had to suddenly defend themselves against a monstrosity the likes of which they could not be prepared for, bear down upon them in the form of the mighty Kyuubi no Yoko, the strongest of the 9 great Biju. There it stood with its 9 long tails, gigantic paws and muscle. Its sharp teeth glinting under the full moon and its blood-red eyes lit with a mixture of anger and curiosity, it let out a roar as the forest set alight. It was hell as the beast tore them to shreds with but a flick of its tails. "Damn, we getting massacred out here," yelled a Junin as the beast sent out another blast of chakra, taking the form of flames as it engulfs more buildings and trees, luckily devoid of civilians. "Quickly get the wounded out of there. We have to hold out till Yondaime-sama can get here." The Junin bared at another Chunin that was the only thing keeping their hopes up. Hope that their leader will pull through and find a way to stop this monster. "Kami-sama, we can't take much more of this. Hurry your ass up, Minato. We need your help now." Those were the thoughts of Sarutobi Hiruzen, former Hokage, as he helped his village hold off the beast. Hokage Tower. The youthful visage of Minato Namikaze was etched in a scowl, holding his contempt and sadness at the current situation. They only received word a few hours ago of the Biju coming to attack them, and what little defenses they could put up was crushed by the beast. Now 1/10 of their village lie in ruins and his shinobi were being killed faster than an Uzumaki ate ramen. Minato knew that there was only one way of stopping the beast, and that was sealing it away. That was what he needed to do, but that was easier said than done. For instance, the only seal powerful enough to seal the beast was deadly. Shiki Fuin, the Reaper Death Seal. If using it you summon death itself to help create a powerful seal. The cost is one's life and soul, so you won't be surviving this plan. Then there's the container, which had to be a newborn child, and only 3 were being born this night, which just with luck were his because his wife had just gone into labor a few hours ago. He was having triplets, a boy and 2 girls. His wife would be bringing their children, Naruto, Nariko and Nanami, into this world. He absolutely hated being in his position now. He would have to subject 2 of his children to the life of a Jinchuriki. A truly dangerous file filled with conflict. The heavy heart he bore, even knowing he had no choice, was almost too much for him to bear. If he wasn't going to die, his wife would surely rectify that. A cold shiver ran down his back. "Hokage-sama." He looked towards his office door to see a man toss it open. A doctor, out of breath, unable to get the words out of what he had to say, but he didn't have to. Minato knew his children were born. "It's time," were his last thoughts before leaving. "Hospital?" Kushina Namikaze looked down, smiling at the 3 bundles in her arms. On her right was little Naruto, who was almost the splitting image of his father, with blonde locks strewn about his little head. The only thing that he had of hers, though, was her beautiful violet amethyst eyes, but his were practically glowing like gems from what little glimpses she was able to get from them during his short life, and had whisker marks on each cheek from being exposed to the yokai hours earlier when she first went into labor, and his sisters also had them. In the middle was little Nariko, who, like her Aniki, she also looked a bit like their father, with blonde hair, only she had a few red streaks, and she had navy blue eyes a few shades darker than their father's. On her left was little Nanami, who, like her sister, had both blonde and red hair, only she had more red than blonde, and had identical eyes like their father. Both girls had quite a bit of energy from how long it took for them to go sleep. The 3 babies stirred uneasily, and she could tell why. The Kyuubi's malice could even be felt from here. "Shush, it's alright little ones, mommy's here, she'll protect you. She won't let anything happen to you, my little angels." The babies settled down, soothed by the voice and love of their mother. Despite seeming calm and joyful, Kushina was anything but the emotions she was showing. In this situation she was fearful. Their home was under the assault by a monster. Kushina was a powerful ninja in her own right. She had earned her nickname as the Red Death throughout her ninja career. But even she, an A- rank bordering on S rank ninja, wouldn't want any part in fighting such a powerful creature. She only prayed her husband would find a way to stop the crisis. The door opened and in came a figure that was a sight for sore eyes. Wearing his own fragile smile just like the one she knew she was wearing, was her husband. Minato. He came up beside her all the while his eyes reflected affection for her and their children. "Aren't they beautiful?" asked Kushina. "They perfect," was the loving response she got from her husband. They then spent a few moments just watching as the children slept. To them it was a fleeting vision of perfection that made them feel fulfilled. But Minato knew he would have to ruin this moment of peace for the sake of his home. "Kushina," he called. The said woman looked at her husband, hearing the pain in his voice. "I'm going to have to use that seal. I'm going to have to use the Shiki Fuin to seal the fox." As a response, his wife could only gasp after she got a hold of herself. "No, I will not have you use our babies for that, never." Minato sighed. He knew this was going to happen despite them both being masters of Fuinjutsu, therefore easily able to figure out what must be done. His wife would deny the necessity of making a Jinchuriki. She always was the hopeful and dreaming one out of the two of them, while he took up the job of the realist. "We have no choice, nothing else can stop it. We have to do this for the sake of the village and our children." At this his wife's face twisted in pain, like the thought of it caused her physical pain, and she started crying. "Then why do you have to die?" She looked up with a tear-stained face. "Why do our babies have to grow up without their Tusan?" Minato himself had to hold in his own tears as he answered his wife's question. "Because it is my duty as Hokage and a father." Kushina lowered her head in resignation. Minato then took his daughters and said a parting word to his wife and son before proceeding to walk out the room. Normally he would have hurried Shinoe, but it just didn't feel right at the moment, and as he walked away he heard his wife say, "I love you." "Battlefield, hold it off," was the cry of the shinobi as they fought the mighty fox. They had managed to get it all the way to the edge of the village thanks to their previous Hokage showing them just way he was and still is, called Shinobi no Kami. Suddenly there was a pillar of smoke and Gamabuta, the chief toad, attacked the fox, pushing it back even more. The crowd cheered for their Hokage. Though Sarutobi knew what was happening by the bundles in Minato's arms. He knew he was still needed, and he only hoped his wife and children would forgive him for what he was about to do. He called Kakashi, who was still fresh for battle because he was kept back because of his age. So he made his way to Gamabuta. "Minato, let me do the sealing. You have so much you still have to do," Sarutobi said, trying to make the younger man change his mind. However, Minato shook his head, stating that he was the Hokage and he had to do this himself, and the two men bowed their heads, but a split second later Sarutobi appeared behind him and knocked him out, taking the girls from his arms. "Kakashi, keep him safe while I finish this." "And Kakashi? Tell my wife and kids I'm sorry." The young man could only nod, still shocked about all of this. While Hiruzen summoned Enma the Monkey King, who said his goodbyes to his old friend. Sarutobi soon summoned the Shinigami, the Lord of Death, who quickly understood what he was supposed to do, while the fox suddenly calmed down as if understanding what was going to happen and was allowing it to happen, as if it had a choice in the matter at all. "Fuin." With that cry a great white flash happened, and when it was gone the fox was no longer in sight, and the two girls had two seals, one on each of their stomachs. As they cried being woken up, a great man had fallen and lay still on the ground. Enma gave a pained sigh, letting a single tear fall before going back to his own world to mourn. Meanwhile Minato Namikaze began to stir as he woke up, being held up by his student just in time to see the Enma disappear. He saw Sarutobi's unmoving form and the absence of the Kyuubi, and he put two and two together and jolted from where he was being supported. He ignored his student calling him and rushed to where the two girls. The deed was done and he could not change it, so he picked up his daughters and looked down at the third still form. "Thank you," were the last words he spoke to the man who just saved his life. Hospital? Kushina Namikaze saw the end to the fighting and realized what that must have meant, as was the evidence of her crying. Just then the door opened up and she saw someone she did not think of ever seeing again, her husband holding their daughters in his arms. Her crying stopped as he walked up to her, neither doing anything, as they looked awkwardly at each other, neither knowing what to do, until Kushina laughed and engulfed her husband and daughters in her arms, holding their children between them as they cried tears of joy. Their family was not destroyed. Later a village meeting was held early in the morning. Minato stood holding his daughters while a little ways back Kushina held their son Naruto. "Good people of the Leaf, I know you all are in pain now with the loss of so many and the destruction brought about by the Kyuubi, but please do not sadden. We have survived thanks to the sacrifice of so many, and we have made it through to a new day, and we can rebuild what we lost." At this the crowd cheered from the conviction in their leader's voice. In fact, I hold here in my arms two heroes along with the help of the late Sandaime Hokage who gave his life to save this village by sealing the yin and yang into these two girls, my daughters Nariko and Nanami Namikaze. At this the people broke into another cheer, not doubting the words of their cage, even though a few that did were pulled into the shadows and had it beaten into them. Later that night, Minato and Kushina watched their children sleep in their crib cuddling with each other. For them this was the perfect moment in all their lives. Finally everything was perfect. For them nothing could ruin this for them. Little did they know certain things will change everything and only destruction would await if things went down a bad path. Life was a bitch and they were about to learn it was always the calm before the storm. It had been quite a few years since the fox attacked the village. The people of Konoha still mourned the dead, but they already started rebuilding their village, and by now the village was back in top notch, especially with their trade line in Nami no Kuni. Everything was going so well this went double for the Namikaze family. Namikaze compound. Currently Kushina was watching over the three kids while they each did their own things while she was sitting with Makoto Uchiha, her best friend since the academy. Meanwhile Makoto's sons were also there seated with them watching the three other children. Kushina-chan, your kids sure are energetic. I almost feel sorry for you, but then again they inherit that from you. Although Naruto-kun seems a bit out of place, rather choosing to sit under a tree and read. He's such a quiet child, he reminds me of Itachi-chan being so mature. I bet you proud of him. Makoto stated in a happy tone. While Itachi sighed, his mother was just so blunt. Well, Makoto-chan, he has always been so quiet and he always head stuffed in books. Honestly dunno what to do anymore. Even Minato wasn't this quiet when he was younger. For once I wish he could maybe communicate more with his sisters. Kushina sighed in exasperation, which the other woman looked confused at. Why? Does Minato feel the same way? Doesn't he communicate well with them? I know Itachi-chan was like him a little, but he knew how to communicate with his cousins at least. Asked Makoto, wearing a frown on her face. Meanwhile, although Itachi wasn't one for trouble and eavesdropping, he couldn't help listening in on his mother's conversation with the Udaime's wife on the 4-year-old boy who sat in the shade of a tree a little ways from where they sat, with a book in his hands. It's not that he doesn't communicate well with them, because he does, it's just ever since he could talk properly he always complains when one or both of his sisters sleep next to him. He always says it hurts or it burns, but the doctors say he's fine. I can't help but think maybe he doesn't like his sisters. This was said with a tone of hurt by Kushina, and Makoto frowned more. I don't believe this, there's something else at play here. I've seen the boy's eyes every time he looks at them. There's nothing but love and kindness in those amethyst eyes of his. While Makoto thought upon this, Itachi had similar thoughts. Something's just not right here. Itachi's own thoughts were also analyzing the situation, and he knew what it was on the tip of his tongue, but he just couldn't get it. Meanwhile, young Naruto sat under the tree reading up on advanced chakra manipulation. Chakra can sometimes change forms when trying to shape it. Firstly, you need an understanding of how it works and what makes chakra up and how it can be broken down. So Kushina-chan has Minato and you started with their training? I know Sasuke started his training just a week ago and he's coming along nicely. Makoto asked, trying to lighten up the mood, and Kushina nodded. Yes, we have. Minato decided he was going to train them in ninjutsu, chakra control and taijutsu, while I train them in fuinjutsu, genjutsu and kenjutsu, and we'll both be training them in weapons. Kushina said, brightening up with a grin. Wow, well, how far are they with it? I'm sure they all took to fuinjutsu like fish to water. This, however, Makoto found was not the right thing to say, as this brought Kushina to frown deeply. When it comes to ninjutsu, the girls excels, learning at a quick rate, while Naruto also excels in it. He doesn't get it down as fast as they do. However, when it comes to chakra control, he is leaps and bounds in front of them because their control sucks. Then there's taijutsu. The girls are great because of their physical condition, but Naruto, while he is very good for his age, he just never wins against them. Again, the girls suck at fuinjutsu and genjutsu, which he excels at, and the same with taijutsu could be said about kenjutsu, but I'm proud of my girls. At this, Makoto once again frowned at Kushina. Can't see her son is a genius and a hard worker? Makoto thought, shaking her head slowly at her best friend. One day, Kushina-chan, this is going to come back and bite you. Meanwhile, Itachi was shocked and impressed. The 4-year-old was very smart and he found himself all the more curious about this child. A month later, Naruto walked down the street of Konoha on his way to buy some ice cream from one of the stands to cheer him up, also as a reward for a chakra control exercise that he learned all by himself. As he patted his wallet Panther-chan, he couldn't help but think about all the changes with his ninja training during the past month, and he frowned. "To-san, Ka-chan. Why do you favor Nariko-chan and Nanami-chan more than me?" This was his thoughts as he thought about the past month. Flashback. A day after Makoto and her sons came by, Minato and Kushina called a meeting in Naruto. Nariko and Nanami sat side by side on the couch before their parents. "Alright kids, your Ka-san and I have decided to change your training a bit. Firstly, we decided to hold off Fuinjutsu, Genjutsu and chakra control for a few more years. Another thing we have decided, since the girls hold the Kyuubi's chakra, they had to be trained first, so Naruto, we won't carry on training you until you all start the academy." Minato said happily, even though he just unknowingly hurt his only son by doing that, but the girls cheered and Kushina smiled, but Naruto frowned deeply. "Ka-chan? To-san? How come the things I'm really good at are put on hold, and why is my training on hold just because the girls hold the Kyuubi's chakra? Why not hold off on the things that they excel in?" Naruto asked, wearing the same deep frown, not understanding why his parents would stunt his growth. "Naruto Namikaze, stop being so selfish. We are doing this because your sisters need it more. And they will be targets," Kushina said in a disapproving tone, scolding her son, while Minato frowned at Naruto and the girls grinned. "But Ka-san, what about me?" Naruto never got to finish as his mother yelled for him to shut up and go to his room and not come down until she told him to, because she wasn't gonna tolerate any back chatting. So he dutifully got up, ignoring his sister's looks of satisfaction, and went to his room and cried himself to sleep. The following weeks were hell for him, because every time his sisters made sure to get him into trouble, and their parents didn't believe when he said something and his sisters said differently. End of flashback. Naruto was so consumed by his thoughts he never noticed the old lady walking in front of him. Meanwhile, Elder Katsume Kurama of the Kurama clan was taking a stroll around the village to stretch a bit. The elder was currently dressed in what seemed to be a brown traditional kimono with a dark pink obi with white petals decorating it at the sleeves and bottoms. Her gray-brown hair was pinned up in a bun and her honey-colored eyes shone with happiness. "Oof. Who the heck do you think you are bumping into? Oh, it's just a brat." The Kurama huffed and was about to carry on walking, that is, until... "Hey, what's that supposed to mean?" Naruto shouted in a burst of rare childishness, momentarily forgetting about apologizing to his elders. "That young man was supposed to mean you just a snot-nosed brat. And you have no right to speak to your elders in that manner. Especially a clan elder of the Kurama clan." Elder Katsume barked at the 4-year-old boy, while a twinkle of amusement shining in her eyes. While Naruto just realized he was shouting at an elder and took a step back before bowing low to the woman. "I'm so sorry, Elder-san. It was wrong and unjust to speak in the manner of which I have. And I should not have done so, but I was so unfocused and in my own thoughts. Please let me make it up to you." These were Naruto's words as he bowed, and the elder put on a thoughtful face as the boy looked up at her with his amethyst eyes. "Alright, now we are talking. How about I some dango? Then I'll share my wisdom with your young mind. Sounds fair enough?" Katsume spoke with a glimmer of curious mischief. "Yes, Elder-san. That sounds fair enough." Naruto replied, happy that he won't get into trouble, and perhaps get some advice on genjutsu from this woman. After all, she came from the Kurama clan, and by the way she dressed you could tell she's one of their elders. So slowly the two made their way to the dango stand. "You can cut the crap with Elder-san. The name's Katsume Kurama. And you are brat?" she asked him, and he paid for the dango they bought. "Naruto Namikaze. Elder, I mean Katsume-san," came the response, and now know who she was talking to. She let out a small laugh but also grew curious. "Say brat, I bet Hokage-sama and his wife has already started with your training, right? Which category do you excel in?" she asked, not caring about clan stuff. She was never one for technicalities. Yes, they have, but, well, I guess I excel in Fuinjutsu, Genjutsu, chakra control and Kenjutsu," Naruto said with a slightly sad tone, which made Katsume raise a brow, surprise and impression but also confusion. "Really? I'm sure your training is going well then, she said, chewing on her dango with hawk-like eyes that only a trained ninja could. Actually, I was going to ask you for some tips on genjutsu because my family, you see, they more busy training my sisters, and so my training was put on hold, but I still want to train, and I know you from the Kurama clan too. Naruto trailed off, having the decency to look ashamed, but there was a bitter glint in his eyes which darkened ever so slightly. What he said sent Katsume for a loop. Were his parents playing favorites? This left a funny taste in her mouth. Well, if that's the case, I suppose I can give you some advice on that subject, but first, how much do you know about genjutsu? At this she watched as his eyes lit up like a kid at a toy store. Genjutsu is mostly to do with the mind and causes one's mind to hallucinate, and is mostly used to distract the enemy to take them out of battle quickly, and is not something used by many ninjas. Naruto said this with confidence. While Katsume smiled, not many children outside of our clan knows that. You know what, brat? I like you. Good job. Yes, that's what genjutsu is, but genjutsu is not like all the others. This is more like an art than anything else because it's only as good as the caster's imagination and willpower, therefore why many people can only do the simplest genjutsus and don't study further into it. Genjutsu is something that you can't really master because of the limitless opportunities there are. In my clan, for one, we all study the art of genjutsu and it runs through our veins to know the hows and whys of it. However, every decade there is someone born within our clan who can not only use illusions, but the illusions they use can cause physical damage to the body. See where I'm going with this? Genjutsu is something that can't be taught by someone, it's something you make from scratch. Therefore, genjutsu is the ultimate jutsu which depends on the person's control, will and imagination. Katsume told him, which he sat wide-eyed with awe and wonder, so she mentally gave herself a pat on her back, thinking it was the same conversation she had with her granddaughter, Yakumo, a few months ago. Wow, do you think I can become a genjutsu specialist? He asked hopeful, and she just chuckled at him. He was one interesting brat, perhaps she could help him out just a little. Yup, if you practice hard enough and have the determination and imagination for it, I'm sure you can become a master in your own way. No doubt about it. She said this while ruffling his hair a little, and he beamed up at her. Well, brat, it's time I get home. I still have a granddaughter to talk to. It was nice meeting you. Good luck and thanks for the dango. The elderly woman said before getting up and walking away, not before she left a plain-looking scroll in his hands. Naruto looked at the scroll in his hands and read the title. Iryujan Gijutsu. Chen. Illusion Technique. Chains. A huge smile flashed across his face and he ran out the stand and seen the lady in a distance. Thank you. He yelled to her and she turned around, flashing him a peace sign before walking on her way back to her clan compound, leaving Naruto to stare after her. 2 months later, after meeting Katsume Kurama, it seemed to Naruto that was where his luck stopped, as not even a day later he drew a picture of his family and left to use the toilet, only to come back and see his parents praising Noriko about his picture that she claimed was hers, and because he confronted her about it he got punished by picking weeds for the next 2 days. Then Nanami breaks their mother's vase because she was running, and he gets blamed for it just because he was there, and they didn't believe him, so he was punished once again because Noriko and Nanami can do no wrong. That wasn't fair at all. Of course, things looked like they were looking up for him when he found his father's Fuinjutsu book and decided to keep it, and he was coming along nicely for being self-taught. I mean, how many 4-year-olds can say they know how to make storage seals? Though it seemed to him that his sisters were trying to make his life a living hell, and throughout the past 2 months he found himself being excluded from curtain activities or being punished and called a liar. It had become so bad that for the first time Kushina raised her hand and brought it down on her own son, all things that left him bitter and hurt. He had slowly come to hate his sisters, especially since the past month was their birthday and the girls banned the other clan children from being friends with him. Flashback. It was their 5th birthday today and he felt like nothing could bring down his happy mood today. Things were finally looking up for him. Oh, how wrong he had been, how very wrong. Outside, everyone, I have an announcement to make. Firstly, thank you for coming. And then secondly, Nanami and I are banning anyone who wants to be friends with us to be friends with Naruto because he's mean. Noriko stated, clapping her hands together with Nanami at her side, nodding in conviction. The other kids all looked confused at this but walked over to the girls, even though some threw apologetic looks while he looked hurt and confused. He didn't say or do anything to them. End of flashback. That had been truly hurtful and sad for the blonde. Currently the girls and Naruto were unpacking the groceries for their mother as she went back to the market for something she forgot. Suddenly, out of pure reflexes, he pulled Nariko out the way as a kunai embedded itself into the wall, and a ninja with the headband for Iwa with a slash across it appeared and started chasing the three of them, who were now running almost to the gates of the compound. Both girls were so scared that they tripped and fell. This made Naruto turn back for them, and he took two kunais for them. He turned around just as the shinobi brought down his kunai to cut the blonde. Naruto, who was running on adrenaline, ran through seals as fast as he could and set the genjutsu he had been working on for the past month on the shinobi, who stopped dead in his tracks and fell to the ground. Just as Naruto passed out, he could only think one thing before joining his sisters, who were both unconscious from shock. Ten no Shogai no Rikuin success. Heaven's faults paradise. But of course, when they woke up, everyone had come to a conclusion that the fox cast the genjutsu on the man to protect itself, and once again his sisters took his credit because of the fox. This had left him bitter and angry, and for the first time he could honestly say he hated his sisters with all his being. However, something far worse was going to happen, which would just nail the coffin shut and completely destroy this so-called happy family. All this would soon take place on the triplets' 7th birthday. Soon a legend would be born and a prophecy would come to play which will leave earth-shattering revelations. The sun slowly made its way into the sky and was shining, as people and shinobi started about with business. After all, they had a festival to set up, because today it was the day the Sandame defeated the Kyuubi and sealed it into the Udame's daughters. It was also their birthday as well, and many people bought a gift for each girl. Hospital. 10th floor. Head medic's office. Humph. Shizune. Come look at all these people. Walking around without a care. Buying gifts for those two brats. This was stated by a blonde-headed woman who looked to be only in her early 30s. Her honey golden brown eyes narrowed in contempt at the villagers as a black-headed woman walked in the office. Her dark brown, almost black-eyed, held the same emotions. Hi, Tsunade-sama. It's as if they forget the Udame has a son too. It's honestly shameful. Those girls think they will be able to outshadow Naruto. Oh Tuto, they have another thing coming. He is so much better than them. How Hokage-sama and Kushina-san can't see this is beyond me. Jiraiya-sama is even ashamed. He said every time he tries to include Naru-chan, they either get distracted by the girls or they brush it off and say Naruto's too busy stuffing his heads in books and pranking people. Even when we say he's not like that, they always saying he's my son, I should know. Yet they know nothing about him. Poor Naruto-kun. If I didn't still think they loved him a little, I'd say they'd forget him one day, and I doubt things would be the same again. Even while Shizune said this, it was like fate was laughing at her, because soon she and everyone would find out just how true her words were and how it would soon bring about changes, and big ones too. Tsunade sat with a cup of sake in her hand, twirled it around. If Shizune and her weren't so busy with the research lab today, they would sure go over to get Naruto, who she saw as a son, and celebrate with him. However, this was called in as an emergency that couldn't wait. She looked over at the cupboard on the side. Inside she had put the gifts Shizune and she bought for him. Maybe when they got out this hospital later today, she'll drop them off with an apology. I wish we weren't called into the research department today. We could have celebrated with Naruto. Tsunade sighed when she said this, and Shizune suddenly looked downtrodden before shaking her head. Well, let's get going. The earlier we start, the earlier we get to see Naruto-chan. Shizune said with conviction as she pumped her fist into the air, and you could practically see the stars in her eyes. Tsunade grinned. Hi, let's go, Shizune. Shocking Shizune out of her mental state, the two left the office with the hope of seeing their surrogate son and brother. Unknown to them, the next time they saw him they would shed tears of horror and sadness. Namikaze compound. Minato and Kushina lie asleep on their bed. Well, they were asleep until the door was roughly tossed open. With the slamming noise and the two yells of Ka-san and Tu-san, the parents were rudely awoken. Good morning, my angels. What do we owe the pleasure of this visit? Minato's annoyance was covered up nicely. After all, who likes being rudely awoken? Especially when dreaming of making his family bigger. Tu-san, you promised to take us to all our friends. Then go to the festival. Nanami's whiny voice was heard loud and clear, as if speaking in a microphone, and Minato and Kushina inwardly flinched. Yak Ka-san, can we go now, please? Noriko, with her apparently adorable puppy dog eyes, quickly took her parents in the palm of her hands. With that, the two girls had them and almost everyone else wrapped around their pinky. Meanwhile, in another room not too far down from their parents' room, On a small bed lay Naruto, who was still asleep, and the reason for this was that he had stayed up the whole night working on a new genjutsu that could make him invisible to the world and that everyone will forget about him, well, except the people who actually care for him. All the while Nariko and Nanami dragged their parents out the house. When they were done, Naruto slowly came to when the front door closed. Ah, stupid Naruto. Don't stay up so late, especially when the next day is your birthday. Tsunade Ka-san would have your hide for this. Ah, wait a minute. Naruto, who was ranting and raving, suddenly realized the front door had banged shut, which had awoken him. Naruto ran to the cold window that had frost on it just to see his sisters and parents walking away from the house, all dressed up in nice warm mittens and scarves around their necks. He was shocked. Did they forget about him? Why were they leaving him at home? How could they be so cruel? Without knowing it, he had lost all sense and started running down the stairs on the cold wooden floor before tossing the door open and running out of the house. Meanwhile, Minato and Kushina were already almost out the gates without paying any attention to the surroundings, and only on the girls they finally stepped out the compound gates. That's when Minato and Kushina activated the seals on the compound. Not knowing this would be their biggest mistake ever. With Naruto, he ran and ran with his left arm braced in front of him, getting ready to push open the compound gates that just shut. Unknown to him, or maybe at the moment he forgot that there were seals on the gate. The minute his hand touched the just activating seals, a chakra surge happened and the gate's seals that thought his arm was an extension of the pathways for the seals pumped an almost ungodly amount of chakra through his arm. In a sudden explosion of blood, the white snow covering the pathway was suddenly a blanket of blood, while Naruto, who was thrown back by the gate, cried put painfully with tears running down his face. He looked in horror at his left arm, which lay limply at his side. The blood oozing out was way too much and the pain was more than terrible. Naruto slowly gathered himself and ripped off his pants pipe and used it as a makeshift band-aid. He slowly made his way to the house, only to find out he couldn't get in because the same seals on the gate were also on the house, meaning he couldn't get into the house now. He chuckled bitterly. On his 7th birthday they forget about him. And even if he screamed for help, he knew no one would hear him. After all, there were silencing seals on the compound because of the girls who made noise, and especially when they were babies because the girls screamed and cried, waking their neighbors up. Research Department. A shiver ran down Tsunade's back. A feeling of dread pooled in the pit of her abdomen. She tried to shake it off, yet it seemed as if it didn't want to leave, and she couldn't help but think something bad just happened. Tsunade-sama, are you alright? You looked like you dazed out there. Is something bothering you? One of the male medical researchers asked her, and she shook her head. No, everything's fine, Dai-san. Why don't you get the laser so we can finally try cutting this piece of shit open? I don't have all day to spend in this place. She barked at him, and he quickly got going to get that laser. While Tsunade looked down at this glowing purple rock the size of a boulder, for some odd reason this thing had just appeared out of nowhere, so they were tasked with finding out what it meant. Little did they know what they had in their midst. Hyuga Compound. Neji ni, a small girl with navy blue hair, called out to a boy with dark brown hair. They both shared the same pupilless eyes, but while his was gray, hers was lavender. Hi Hinata-sama? What's wrong? The boy, no more than recently turned 8, asked the girl identified as Hinata, who wore a light purple kimono. I'm having another vision. Naruto-kun's left arm is all bandaged up and he's kneeling on the ground crying, and there's red all around him like it's trying to consume him. Hinata's eyes glowed a silver, white color before going back to lavender, and she stared at the boy who had quickly came to her side. Naruto? Why's his arm bandaged? Why's he crying? Neji asked. He remembered Hinata, and he met Naruto back when Hinata was 4 and he himself was 5. Some boys were bullying Hinata when he had arrived there to stop them, but he was beaten to the punch by a blonde-headed boy who saved Hinata. So from that day on, Hinata and himself had become friends with Naruto quickly. I don't know Neji ni, but he looked so sad. The girl cried out into her cousin's chest. Namikaze Compound. Naruto sat outside as the sun started setting. He let out a bitter laugh. I can't believe it, even after they forgot about me I still hope deep down they'll come back. But it's been 10 hours and I feel so cold. I wonder, would my sisters be happy if I died? Naruto couldn't help but think these things. After all, he lost too much blood and it was getting colder by the minute now that the sun set. 6 hours later, an hour before midnight, Naruto let out a cough. He looked like he was wearing a white full body suit, however this just happened to be a thin layer of frost coating his body, while both arms lay limp at his side. His lips were purple and his skin tone looked like a bluish mixed with peach. His hair no longer the bright sun-kissed yellow, now it was a dull yellow. Gem-like amethyst violet eyes peeked from behind his eyelids. If you looked closely you would see a broken soul. He glanced at the sky, seeing a full moon with brightly lit stars in the sky, and fresh tears rolled down his marked cheeks. If this is how my life ends, well damn. What a life. Neglected for my sisters. Ignored by most of the other clan children. Ah, what a life. My only friends Hinata, Neji and Itachi. Jiraiya Ero. Tsunade Ka-chan. Makoto Ka-chan. Katsume Oba. Bawako Oba. Shizune Ne. Anko Ne. Tuchi-san and Ayame-chan. I'll miss you. Naruto thought as he felt a tremor wreck his small body that he couldn't feel anymore. Slowly a bitter-sweet smile made its way across his face. His eyes dimmed, slowly losing all the life they once had, and just as the fireworks went off exploding in a shower of different colors, the last bit of life left his eyes and his pulse stopped. Festival. Minato and Kushina had gotten all the clan children, and the children played while the parents got drunk, except for the Uchihas because Itachi just came back from a mission. Fugaku was stuck doing paperwork. Makoto believed she had a stomach virus and Sasuke was sick with flu. The Hyuga cousins were watching and looking where Naruto was because they only arrived a few hours earlier at like 5 because their father was called to a meeting quickly by the elders, and when they arrived they thought maybe Tsunade was with him or had him somewhere, but now that the fireworks just went off and everyone was gathered around, neither Hyuga could spot Naruto anywhere, and that left a sense of dread in their stomachs, especially since Hinata's vision. Poof. Suddenly white smoke covered the area and out popped Jiraiya of the Sannin, grinning like a mad thing as both Nariko and Nanami ran over to him demanding what they got for their birthday, and everyone else surrounded. Now children. Because Minato is my student, I will be allowing you to sign the Toad contract. Now where's Naruto? I want him to sign first, after all he was born 5 minutes before you girls. Naruto, you brat, where are you? Kushina? Minato? Where is the brat? I know Shizune and Tsunade's at the research department. This question was answered with a deadly amount of silence which left Jiraiya uneasy. Minato and Kushina paled while Nariko and Nanami looked a little angry but also devious. Oh my gosh. Minato, we forgot him at home. Ah, let's hope he didn't trash the house. You know how he pranks. He'll probably forgive us when we let him sign the Toad contract. Let's go home quickly, Kushina said, and all the clan mothers looked at her in shock. How could she forget her own son? Minato nodded, and they all, including the other clan heads and their children, made their way to the Namikaze compound, not knowing the horrifying scene that shall forever be embedded in their memories. Uchiha compound. Makoto decided since she was feeling better she would drag Itachi, Sasuke and her husband with to the Namikaze compound, thinking that they will meet the family along the way to give their wishes, not knowing Itachi's life would change to the event he was about to witness. Namikaze compound. The minute Minato and Kushina opened the gates they were hit by a heavy smell of iron, a smell they knew all too well. The children let out screams at the horrifying bloody gates and snow-covered pathway that was now looking like a bloody puddle. Before anyone could do anything, Hinata and Neji ran in a certain direction of the gardens in the compound. Itachi and Makoto soon followed not a minute later, and after knocking the other children out they all ran in the same direction as the others, only to come to a sudden stop as they gazed upon the scene. Naruto-kun, Hinata yelled as she dropped to her knees, tears free falling from her eyes, and Neji stood behind her throwing up and crying too. Makoto was no better than Hinata, she too was on her knees. Itachi was too, but his eyes changed. First it flashed red, then it turned into his Sharingan with 3 comers before it turned into what looked like a windmill shuriken, but only the legs were longer and sharper looking than a shuriken. The scene before them made their hearts stop for a moment. There, under the same tree that he sat under when he was 4 reading about advanced chakra manipulation, was the figure of Naruto, blood-red snow beneath him. His now lifeless amethyst violet eyes were half open as if staring back at them accusing, and the bitter-sweet smile he wore was still upon his face as if frozen for eternity. My baby! Makoto cried out, sobbing while shooting up and running to him and clutching his small frozen frame against her own bigger one, running her hand through his now dulled blonde hair. It's going to be okay. Honey, Ka-chan's here, baby, Ka-chan's here, now everything will be fine. She sobbed, rocking back and forth while one thought ran through the other clan's heads. Why is Makoto crying like is her son? poor woman looks distraught and Kushina and Minato are frozen in shock and horror. The full moon shone over the scene as Jiraiya was on his knees with tears running down his face. He suddenly got up and slapped both Kushina and Minato across their faces, snapping them out of their daze, and Kushina suddenly started crying, whispering, "My baby, oh my baby," over and over while Minato shook, crying silently. "This is your entire fault. If you just cared more about your son than always about your daughters, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Now let's get your fucking son to Tsunade to see what she can do about your fuck up." Jiraiya barked at them and Kushina cried some more before making her way over to Makoto, who still rocked Naruto back and forth, and she took Naruto's body out her best friend's arms, who was shaking badly. "Miko-chan. Let's go to the hospital." She never got to finish because Makoto stood up and slapped her across her tear-stained face while glaring daggers at her, a true Uchiha glare that never before was directed at her. And it left her speechless and standing with Naruto's ice-cold body in her arms. "You not his mother. Or a friend of mine," Makoto said, and walked away before Kushina followed her, silently crying more as she and everyone else made their way to the hospital in silence with the sobs of Hinata loud in their ears. Hospital. Tsunade and Shizune gave up. They really did. They spent a whole day's worth of time with Naruto wasted at the research department, and in the end they got nothing from the stupid fucking rock that seemed to glow brighter, and it was just a ways from illuminating the room. Tsunade sighed. That idiot Jiraiya got to see her Naru-chan before her. That was unfair. She mentally pouted. Bang! The doors banged open and a gasping, teary-eyed Shizune made her look at the door's direction, and what she saw only brought back memories of her past love and dead brother and made her heart boil with anger. Naruto. What the fuck happened to him? Minato, Kushina. Answer me. Tsunade roared in anger, looking at the boy before her who lied in a teary-eyed Kushina's arms, who was rushing to her silently with Makoto lurking with tears behind her and glowing red eyes showing why she was the Uchiha head's wife. "I have a guess," Minato said palely as Tsunade turned her deadly golden brown eyes to him and then back to Kushina, and then she slowly looked down at Naruto. He had no pulse. "I want a good damn fucking explanation from you. Shizune, get yourself together. You nurses, get a goddamn stretcher. Asp. Now." Tsunade yelled the last part and the nurses ran off and did just that. With Tsunade. "Come on Naruto. Damn it, don't leave me. Beat, you stupid heartbeat," Tsunade thought as tears fell from her eyes, looking down at the small boy that lied before her on a table, and another doctor came to her and shook his head, and she still tried along with Shizune, who also cried. Unknown place. "Naruto, wake up. Open your eyes. Your beautiful eyes." A voice was heard in the endless white around him, and he suddenly found himself lying on lush green grass and a clear blue sky above him. "Where am I? Am I dead?" Naruto thought, and then there was a laugh sounding like chiming glass bells, and he sat up and looked around until he found the source of the sound. A beautiful woman with bright red hair and violet eyes walked towards him. She was fair and slim. She wore a white robe like kimono that reached her ankles. Her hair was tied up in two buns on top of her head, and paper tags dangling from the senbon needles poking out on either side of her buns. The kimono was simple with silver and gold designs on it, and she walked barefoot towards him with a mother's smile upon her face, as she helped him stand. "Naruto. You are the heir to the Uzumaki legacy. Yes, you have died, but not for long. You are in the realm of choosing. This is the Uzumaki legacy. My name is Mito Uzumaki. I will be explaining to you about your blood rights, however it will be locked in your mind until you gain back what you have lost," the woman said, and with every word she said Naruto felt shocked, happy and confusion. He was happy he was meeting an ancestor, especially since she, from what he read in the history books, was the clan heir until she passed away after the Uzumaki was destroyed and his mother got to the village, yet she never named someone next in line for heir. "What do you mean? How can I be the clan's heir? I mean, I didn't do anything, and I don't even know any clan fuinjutsu." This was said with his head drooping and a frown. Mito's mouth frowned downwards and she put her hand on his shoulder. "You out of everyone out there, have the true heart and soul of a clan leader. Your intelligence, strategic mind, will and determination, and naturally seeing the good in everything. Even the family that neglected you, don't take revenge. Just show them what they missed out on, but don't forgive them, tolerate but never forget. You face many challenges ahead of you," Mito told him with a small smile upon her lips. Meanwhile, in the realm of the living, only a few seconds had gone by and Tsunade and Shizune were still trying to revive him but only managed to regenerate some tissue for his arm, but they could do nothing about the destroyed chakra coils in his left arm. Outside, Kushina and Minato got verbal beat-downs by Makoto and it made them feel like shit, while Hinata and Neji refused to leave the hospital until they got word of Naruto, while many of the other clans went home shaking their heads at the couple, and Itachi sat on the other end perking up every time a doctor walked past. Back in the Uzumaki realm of choosing, Naruto sat listening to what was going on and what was going to happen when he gets sent back. I can't believe this. And no one knew this, only from one clan head to the next? And when I get back, my memories of this place will be sealed until I choose of my own what my next steps will be, and if I don't choose the right one, my memories and my air rights will be wiped clean like my mother? Also, there's a glowing purple rock that you sealed a lot of your chakra, including half of your soul in? And it will come to me the minute I take the right path? Then now that you told me everything, I guess you're going to send me back? Naruto asked why was his life so troublesome. In the realm of the living, Shikamaru sneezed. Yes, but before that, remember about the prophecy. You will regain what you have lost, for the future has been foretold, or all will be lost for the greater events that will soon happen, and the heir of Whirlpool, who holds a great burden of hatred, will need to rise above all that's against him. Now Naruto, are you ready to go back? Mito asked, and he nodded, remembering the prophecy she told him that he was a part of. After he nodded, Mito leaned forward and placed a kiss on his forehead and watched him slowly get a blank and confused look before fading away. She sighed and rubbed her wrist where a seal was seen. The seal held the Uzumaki's white crest with gold outlines around it. It appeared when she proved herself to her grand uncle Ashina Uzumaki, the eldest brother to her grandfather. She became heir when she was 16, and it seems so long ago. Realm of the living. Bump, bee bump, bee bump. Tsunade heard a heartbeat and she let fresh tears fall, but in joy. Shizune was in a similar state while all the doctors cheered. After stabilizing him, Shizune and Tsunade went to the family to give them the news. She saw Jiraiya sitting with his head between his knees, Minato holding a still crying Kushina while he cried himself, Hinata and Neji sitting by Makoto, who promised the Hyugas she'll take care of them. Makoto herself was looking exhausted and sick, and you could tell she's been vomiting by the pale shaking hands. Itachi sat a seat away from his mother, and Fugaku held a sleeping Sasuke on his lap, unconsciously holding Sasuke tighter to him because of what had happened to Naruto. He didn't want it to happen with his sons, so he decided he'll lay off them. Tsunade cleared her throat and got their attention, and they all jumped. He is alive, she said with a tired smile. She couldn't help but think there was something else at play here, because he had been dead for at least an hour when he got to the hospital, and then it took an hour to revive him, but she was grateful for little mercies. And we managed to save his arm. However, the good news stops there. The bad news is that he did die, but we revived him in time, and he will not be able to use his arm for months. That's where it gets worse. He will never be able to be a ninja. His chakra coils are destroyed in his arm, and his chakra system was broken and can't be replaced. At this, everything was silent before the crying started again. What are we going to tell him? Jiraiya asked softly, and no one answered that until Minato did. As Hokage, everyone is banned from saying anything to him about his chakra coils until Kushina or I tell him. Is that clear? He said, and everyone was shocked, and while most nodded in acceptance, Tsunade, Jiraiya and Makoto angrily stomped off with words of, if he asks us, we will tell him the truth. With Naruto looked at the ceiling. He couldn't remember anything else but that his family had forgotten him, and that it showed they obviously don't care. Kushina and Minato walked into the room and watched him, and even when they tried talking to him, he didn't say anything except facial expressions until he asked how long it would take to use his arm again, and after he got his answer he went to sleep. Unknown place. So they finally made their move, huh? Well, we'll see. All the pieces are finally moving. Now it's my turn. A dark-eyed man said, chuckling before smirking and moving a piece on the shogi board. Was the future really as black and white? Or was there something lurking between the light and dark side of the equilibrium? A month had passed since the accident. Kushina and Minato just either didn't think Naruto had a right to know about his chakra system or didn't have the heart to crush the boy. While Naruto never asked about why the people around him looked so sympathetic towards him, he did ask when he'll be able to use his arm again, because he thought they looked towards him like that because of not being able to use his arm. While his sisters were way more bitchy now because he was getting attention from their parents even if he didn't really want it now. Tsunade, Shizune, Katsume, Bawako, Jiraiya, Anko, Itachi, Neji, Hinata and Makoto came to visit him every now and again, and they the only ones he'd smile at, well, including Shishu, who had only came back from a long mission. Shishu and he weren't close before because the guy was always busy, especially since he was in Anbu. However, they also became somewhat friends since he was given a leave for 2 months. Though many of the people that actually cared for him weren't there most of the time because they were all very busy, and that was understandable being the people they are. Despite everything, Naruto still trained without his parents' knowledge of cause. After the accident, he decided he needed to learn some medic ninjutsu in case something like that happened again. He asked Tsunade and Shizune and they agreed immediately since Tsunade had found him walking up the side of the room walls, which she thought impossible, but soon she and Shizune started teaching him medical ninjutsu. Senju Compound. Tsunade lay upon her bed and thought about the events that happened and how Naruto was still able to use chakra. She remembered telling Naruto she was just going to give him a checkup, and she secretly found out that because Naruto had perfect chakra control for a child, and even though she believed he will never be able to use chakra in his body at all, she found out because of his control he was able to use the chakra in him, but just barely. But it saddened her to know she couldn't tell him anything until Minato or Kushina told him. That, however, didn't mean she wouldn't teach him medical jutsus, although secretly just between Naruto, Shizune and herself. She was happy he could at least use some chakra from his broken coils. Thinking about it made her frown. Maybe he inherited one good thing from Kushina then, and that was the Uzumaki healing abilities, but even she knew it would take the vitality of someone like her grandmother, Mito, to heal a chakra system that was broken in 20 places, these places being his 2 parts by his stomach, 3 parts in his arm that was damaged badly, 7 along his ribs, another 3 in his left leg, 2 in his other arm, 1 by his shoulder blades and 2 near his heart. This really scared her, but even above all odds he worked hard to use even a little of his chakra, and that put a smile on her face. With Naruto smiled lightly. A month ago Makoto found out she was pregnant, and when she told him he was so happy for her. Soon Naruto found himself frowning again. He obviously was only released from the hospital last month, and he was slowly accepting his parents back into his heart unknowingly, and his sisters were still trying to direct the attention back to themselves, and it was working slowly. It was just a matter of time. Naruto shook his head and thought on better matters, like he had learned to cast jutsu with one hand. Now wasn't that cool? Now he could perform jutsu while keeping his other hand free. And he learned, or better yet completed, his genjutsu that he had been trying to get down the day before his parents forgot him. It was called mirror. This allowed him to be somewhere without people or the affected person to see, or more like ignore his presence, and they won't pay him much thought, almost as if making himself invisible to that person or people. So it soon became that his favorite thing to do was use his sisters as test subjects for this jutsu, because he could make himself invisible to them, so even if he was there they wouldn't pay any attention to him. That's unless he made physical contact or spoke too loudly, but also he made it so that if you didn't notice him you won't think about him much, only in maybe like a passing thought. He made this with the intention of not being noticed so he won't get into trouble, and so he could train in peace. He loved this genjutsu and thought if he mastered it one day it could become a base for another genjutsu that would be better than this one, but the original had a fault, that if someone who wasn't affected by the genjutsu starts up a conversation about the caster. Another thing is the medical ninjutsu. That had taken him a month to get down one jutsu. And although it wasn't grad, it was something, and the basics are always something to know even if it was E-ranked. Naruto pouted and decided to rather sleep than carry on pondering over the last 2 months. Dream. Naruto suddenly found himself in an empty white abyss and saw a flash of something, then a deep male voice rang out all around him. Strength is power. Descendant, but strength of the heart is more powerful. Remember? The voice spoke, but most parts couldn't be heard, and Naruto tried calling out, but the voice would speak, but then some parts were blocked out so he couldn't hear. Suddenly he found himself falling in a black abyss and he was screaming. There was suddenly a burning in his chest, like flames coming out as if to consume him and swallow him whole. Dream. It was 1 in the morning when Naruto awoke, startled and breathing hard. He tried to move, feeling an incredible pain throughout his body. That's when he noticed Nariko and Nanami both laying beside him with their heads on his chest. Naruto found it hard to breathe, let alone demand they get off him, so instead, with every fiber in his body screaming at him not to move, he wriggled, shaking the girls awake. "What the hell are you doing in my room? You too, Nanami. This was said by a very irritated Nariko for being woken up at such an ungodly hour. Nanami looked confused around the room before looking at her brother, then looking at Nariko, telling her this was not their rooms and it was his. Although said harshly, the two girls quickly left to their own rooms, not paying attention to their very pale brother, who had immediately ran to the basin in his bathroom and started vomiting. Red. That's what Naruto saw all in the basin. It was like the tiles were turned red. Only that wasn't the case because he knew something was wrong now. Suddenly feeling dizzy, he managed to stumble out the bathroom only to fall face first towards his bed, and then he knew no more. 3 hours later, Naruto woke up and in his still dizzy state he wandered down the hall, but as he paced his parents' room he heard their voices and he stopped as he heard his name mentioned. Room? Kushina sat on the bed watching Minato get ready to go to the Hokage office. Lately she felt a lot more moody and her stomach was giving her problems, always cramping. She watched Minato slip on his Junin vest and tie his headband on. Minato, when are we going to tell Naruto? I mean, we've been putting it off all this time and it keeps his hopes up and being more hopeful. She said sighing, and Minato came and sat beside her and slowly stroked her hair and she leaned in towards him. Kushina, we'll tell him soon, okay? But we can't right now come out and say, hey Naruto, don't take it the wrong way, but using my influence as Hokage, I told everyone not to tell you that you will never reach your dreams because your arm's chakra coils are completely destroyed and your entire network has been broken into almost 20 places, so you will never be able to use chakra or become a ninja ever. Yeah, Kushina, I doubt that would play out well, especially since we messed up big time with most of our friends because of the accident. This was said in a dry tone with a very blank look, and Kushina sighed, wondering why things couldn't be easier. Naruto? Naruto's mouth was on the floor. He wasn't going to be a ninja again because of them? That wasn't fair. Slowly tears pooled in his eyes, falling to the floor, and he ran out, not caring that he was still a bit dizzy. He ran past everything and everyone. He had soon ran into a forbidden district, where a lot of the Kyuubi's chakra that wasn't sealed fast enough lurked. Why didn't they tell me? Did I not have the right to know? How could they? I hate them. I hate this place. I wish I can just leave and never come back. Naruto cried out to the heavens in anguish as he held his arm. Naruto cried on his knees holding his arm. The complete anguish in his sobs was the only sounds ringing in the clearing. Suddenly green chakra came swirling all around the clearing from the forest. This was also a type of healing chakra, but only if it had to, though it never found much that perked its interest. But Naruto didn't notice this because his eyes were shut as if in pain as his heart clenched painfully in his chest. Soon, without him noticing, the swirling mass of green chakra covered him completely. This chakra was what had consumed the Kyuubi's chakra and turned it into its own. The chakra had one instinct, and that was to find out why this boy was in such a state, never having sensed such before. So when it touched him, it was shocked, being leftover chakra that was just left around after people died. It had felt loss and pain, but never a broken soul to this extent. The green chakra disappeared, but having a bit of a mind its own, it decided to watch this boy, being curious as to why this boy had dark wisps of red chakra in his system that was seemingly killing him slowly from the inside and was oddly like the Kyuubi's chakra. Sometime later, after 2 hours of non-stop crying and screaming, Naruto decided to get himself together and stood up, looking for the first time at his surroundings, and saw a few buildings that looked a bit old and not maintained. So in childish anger and curiosity he walked into a random building and looked around. The place was a mess with rats and insects running about. Growing even more curious, he followed a hallway and came to a staircase leading down. So he walked down slowly, only to see a few doors here and there until something caught his eyes. It was a wall on the right. It looked a bit skew, so he walked up to the wall and pushed. At first it didn't budge. After a second time it crumbled in on itself, showing a hallway. Naruto followed it without thinking, and some of the green chakra that decided to just rest a little in his arm that was in the sling grew weary at the feel of the place. Soon he came upon a room. It looked like some kind of messed up lab. There was a bed in the middle like one from hospitals, only this was matted with blood, dried blood. There were about 20 different bottled liquids of different colors with funny writing on them that was faded. Then there was 2 basins on the other side. All in all, the place gave off a bad vibe. Naruto walked around a bit until he decided to see what those bottles contained. He took one off the shelf and tried to read it, but instead it slipped, and without thinking he tried to catch it, only it ended up cutting his unusable hand, and watched it heal up quickly after the liquid sunk into the wounds. Naruto yelped and checked his arm, and he felt like he could move it a bit. In an act of complete hope and stupidity, he collected all the bottles and poured the sink full of the stuff, leaving the bottles empty and on one side. He mixed it with a piece of broken wood. Once he was satisfied, he unwrapped all the bandages and braced himself. Ah! He let out a scream as the liquid burned his arm. He quickly fell to the floor, mentally shouting at himself for being stupid. Why did you do that? Ah! It hurts so much. You just had to get hopeful and do that. You idiot! How you gonna leave Konoha now if you gonna die? Please, someone help me, please. These were Naruto's thoughts before he blacked out from the pain. The green chakra in his arm was panicked. The first thing that spilled into the wounds was dealt with quickly, but also took quite a bit effort, leaving the green chakra with hardly anything left because of how strong that acid was. And now this. Just when it was getting more curious about the boy, so it did the only thing it could do. It called on all the other green chakra that lie bored around the place to help it save the person it was curious about. The other green chakra responded and were there in no time. All the chakra surrounded Naruto and forced itself into the boy. Naruto could be thankful that this chakra was trying to help him and that his coils were broken in those 20 places, otherwise this could have turned out very badly for him. However, no one would ever expect the future outcome of this. Hokage's office. I want all Junin here ASAP. There was a sudden chakra surge in the condemned areas that are still going down to be rebuilt, and we need to know exactly what happened and how it happened. Minato was not happy as he yelled out orders to his assistant. Kushina stood off to the side while Jiraiya leaned against the wall with a frown. All these things were frustrating Minato out. How could there be such a strong surge? I know it didn't come from the girls. I was with them the whole day until you called me here. This was said by a very worried Kushina, who had indeed been with the girls training them in weapons. Jiraiya grunted and Minato sighed. Naruto? Naruto groaned. He was suddenly stunned with his memories of what happened and how it happened. He suddenly slapped himself hard. Ow! How could I have been so stupid? Shit, ow, what the hell? Everything hurts. What happened? This was Naruto's thoughts as he shifted from the floor until his eyes widened comically and he let out a yell. What the heck? Gosh, my other arm works. Kami, I think that stuff in the bottles did this. Ah, stupid Naruto. Stupid. You really shouldn't have done that. This is what was shouted out as the boy slapped himself with both hands when he had realized both his hands were working, but also let out a whoop and started cheering until he remembered why he was so angry and sad, and then he frowned and blinked away the oncoming tears. How am I going to explain this? Wait a minute, I said I was gonna leave this hellhole and never come back, so I'll only hide this with the bandages. As he thought this, Naruto quickly performed one-hand seals for a henge in case there were other changes and felt like the blockage of his coils wasn't there anymore. After performing the henge, he looked at himself in a broken mirror and nodded happy to himself. He decided to figure everything out when he left Konoha. Quickly Naruto left, not noticing that the basin was empty and the teams of Junin around the area. As he was on his way back to the compound, he found out he's been out for a day and a half, and he started rushing away until he saw some girls surrounding a pink-headed girl. They were all bullying this girl. Suddenly he felt anger build up in him and stormed their way. Hey, what's going on here? Leave her alone. Go home. After he said this, all the girls scattered at the anger in his voice never heard before, so they were all quick to run away. This left Naruto alone with the pink-headed girl who was crying in the middle of the park. Hey, are you okay? What's your name? I'm Naruto. Why was those girls bothering you? Naruto asked gently, sitting down in front of the girl, and she sniffed and shook her head. You not here to tease me, are you? She asking softly, stuttering and looking at him with emerald green eyes, making him blink and shake his head. I'm Sakura. Haruno, and they always tease me about my forehead. I don't know why I have a big forehead. It's not my fault. She yelled before sobbing into her knees with her body shaking, and Naruto patted her head with the hand that wasn't damaged before he fixed it. I'm sorry. Your forehead isn't that big. They're lying to you just because you must be really smart. He told her, smiling softly, and she looked up with hopeful eyes. Here, take this. He said, pulling out a purple string that he used as a bookmark from his pocket and tied it double on her wrist. I'm going home now, bye. Naruto said, waving at her, and she smiled a little smile and wiped her tears away. Bye, Naruto-kun. She yelled, her voice cracking a little from all her crying. Later that night, when Naruto got home, The place was empty and no one was around, so he went to his room and undid the hinge and looked in the mirror and noticed some differences. First, his hair now had black streaks along with the blonde. His eyes stayed the same but looked more intensive than before, and his whisker marks were a bit lighter now and looked like they would fade as he grew older. He quickly noticed that there was more of a curve in his face, giving it a bit of a sharper look than before, and he looked just a bit older with his features and hardly like his father or mother now, and he was glad for that. Wow, I wonder if it was because of that medication that I'm like this now. Maybe I should try and see if my jutsus still work properly. Naruto thought, admiring his new looks before making a shadow clone that he learned how to make when he secretly watched Kushina teach it to the girls. So he spent the rest of the day checking if his genjutsus worked still and if the medical ninjutsu also worked, and also the Academy 3 along with a little fuinjutsu. During this time he found himself able to go on for a while without getting chakra exhausted. He managed to figure out casting genjutsu was easier now and didn't need way too much concentration like before, and his little bit of ninjutsu he had, which was only 5 and all low C ranked, he learned them from watching Minato train the girls before his injury. The jutsus were all stronger and took less time to do. Once again he was struggling with something he picked up. It was that he had a slight chakra sense and figured that out when Kushina came home, and he got a jolt of surprise when he felt her chakra in the house. This added to Naruto's building questions, and he decided to rather keep the henge up until he buys some blonde dye so no one notices before he leaves, which he decided would be the weekend because he wanted to get more of a feel to his slightly new appearance and abilities, also to get supplies together and plan an escape. Unknown. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a woman wearing a blue dress banged a wooden desk in frustration. She wore a scowl on her face as she read the scroll again. 100 children killed, 1,000 men and women killed. 12 ice users from the Yuki clan. 20 Hazuka clan members. Others, all smaller clans, dead in different ways. Day 1. Naruto woke up earlier than he has in the past. It was Tuesday. He remembered everything that happened and what has changed his attitude with living in Konoha. He sat up slowly and yawned while rubbing his eyes. Looking in the mirror of his bathroom, his hair was now dyed full blonde again. He had changed nothing else of his new appearance, but none of the changes were truly noticeable unless you looked carefully. After brushing his teeth and taking a bath, he wrapped up the arm that used to be damaged so no one would grow suspicious and got dressed in a black shirt and gray shorts. He put his left arm in the sling and went out of the compound to make his way to an empty training ground to start planning his escape by looking at the patrols and time. So if I time it properly, around this time I could get out. Then again, I would not get far. Unless I take this route. This could possibly work. He thought hard about the timing and where the patrols lapsed, as well as how many were on duty and how it would conflict with the plan he had, yet also how it could fit in. By noon he was dead tired because he had spent a long time by the training grounds planning. However, he had gotten hungry long before his plan was put together, so he ended up going to Ichiraku Ramen and got some vegetable ramen for a late breakfast before he headed to the library looking for Konoha's layout, and it took quite a while to find it, so after studying it he made a copy of it by drawing it and put the original back. Then he went for a snack. He got home early so that he could start on his letter to Tsunade and had to suffer through dinner with his family, with Kushina chatting happily with Noriko and Nanami while Minato smiled and nodded, only responding when he had to. There were shadows under the two adults' eyes, yet they pretended to be fine, but Naruto of course ignored all of them for his own restraints. Later that night he once again dreamt about that voice saying the same thing, which made him confused and irritated. Day 2. Waking up and stretching before doing his morning routine for himself. He soon after dressed, then bandaged his not-so-damaged arm up and put it in the sling. Leaving the house and compound was easy to do. He went to the training grounds to train a little before anyone came around, and then also worked on his escape plans by checking out different escape routes and decided that the front gate was the best option when using the plan he had in mind. By the time he got home he was way too tired to sit around with his family and play the brother and son in the house. So he just took his dinner and ate in his room, ignoring the rest of them. After eating he made 2 storage scrolls and packed up 5 of his shirts and 5 pants and shorts, along with 2 pairs of ninja sandals. He sealed all that in the one scroll and put it in a black backpack that had many pockets. He went to sleep early because it was just 2 days before he left and he needed to plan out everything properly. Day 3. He performed the same morning ritual that he has for the past 2 days before leaving. This time however he went to the market using a henge. He took all his money he had saved up from his parents and Tsunade. He ended up spending 3 hours at the market buying rations, a few bottles of water, a medical kit, a sewing kit, a set of sharp kunai and shurikens as well as a roll of exploding tags. Going to an alley he sealed all the new supplies in the other storage scroll he made and undid the henge before getting some breakfast. The money was all what he got in the monthly allowances, which was 100 yen for the month. However, with him collecting and saving since he was 5. Going bad to the compound once again, he decided to skip supper and went to his room. He sat at his desk and pulled out the letter he was going to leave for Tsunade and read over it for the 5th time since he wrote it. Tomorrow night, the night when everyone will be occupied with his escape plan going off, that's when he'll leave. He would have enough time from the morning to set up his plan. Naruto sighed softly. Why couldn't they just tell me? They could have at least made amends by telling me and helping me through it, but instead they kept it from me. I can't go back now. I have completely lost all the trust I had in them. I will leave tomorrow and I will never come back. And if I do, I'll prove how much of a better person I am. As he thought this, his emotions swirled. One part of him believed deep down that maybe they still loved him, but the other part argued if they loved him even a little they would have said something or comforted him a little like they do to Noriko and Nanami. So with his inner struggle the side that no longer wanted them as a family won, and he steeled himself, determined not to hold on anymore, because after all they have done, what forgiveness do they deserve? So despite his determination to keep his grudge against them, he had made up his choice of leaving and not staying and snapping at them, making himself look like a brat. That night Naruto dreamt of being free, and the last string that kept him attached to the Namakazes was broken. He was going to make a name for himself, and if any Namakaze came in his way again, he'd make sure they would be sorry, because he will never forgive or forget the emotional hurt they put him through. Day 4. Escape. Getting up and doing his morning routine, he took the backpack and left the compound as fast as he could while they were all sleeping. He went to the library and pulled out a roll of paper bombs and put 3 of them on different walls of the library without anyone noticing because of the genjutsu he used, which was mirror. As quickly and quietly as possible he left the library and cancelled the genjutsu he used. His next stop was the market. Namakaze compound. From the minute Kushina woke she had a sense of dread in the pit of her stomach, but she ignored it in favor of making breakfast for her family. As she flipped the pancakes she thought about Naruto. She completely pushed away the thought of having neglected her only son. No, I never neglected him, he was just always so quiet and caused trouble, that's why we sometimes forget about him or ignore him. After all, I never raised him to be disrupted. The only reason he can't play pranks now is because of his arm, so the girls must be mistaking some other child's pranks for Naruto's. Yeah, that must be it. As she thought upon this, the girls ran down the staircase and into the kitchen with big smiles on their faces, making herself smile as well. Naruto. After putting about several exploding tags multiple places in the market where people won't really get hurt, he made his way to the hospital and put some tags around there before going and doing the same to the Hokage Tower with the last few tags without anyone noticing him. Naruto soon made his way to Ichiriku's ramen stand and got himself a few bowls of miso ramen. Tsunade-ka-san will be mad at me for making her worry, but the letter will let her know I'm okay. I'm going to leave. But will I survive? No one's going to be there to save me. I'm going to be on my own. But I'll get lonely. I wonder if I'll make friends. Naruto thought upon this, slightly fearful. After all, he was only just a child and he could only hope that his intellectual mind would help him. Drinking the miso soup, he thanked the father-daughter duo who watched him with worried. Naruto walked out the stand with the black backpack slung over his back and looked up at the sky as a soft breeze blew by, ruffling his blonde hair. The sun stood dead still in the sky, indicating that it was 12 now. Naruto turned away and made his way into a forest by a nearby training ground, looking for a stream to use a dye remover to wash out the blonde dye. He had planned everything out as best as he could. Now all he had to do was put this plan in motion and make his escape. 10 hours later, a boy in black, who was identified as Naruto with his streaks in his hair, moved around in the shadows as quickly and silently as he could. As he made his way to the front gates of Konoha with a black backpack slung over his back, he stood in the shadow of the wall making his chakra signal as small as he could. Then he made a hand sign and sent out a small pulse of chakra and then hanged into a rat at the same time as casting his genjutsu mirror on the guards by the gate. Boom! was the sound of all the paper bombs going off, which was also Naruto's signal to leave when the gate guards jumped looking for the problem that caused the explosion. So hanged as a rat, Naruto hightailed it out of Konoha gates, hiding a good distance away from the place that tried to destroy his dreams, in between some tree roots. Namikaze compound. Minato lied in his bed next to Kushina thinking about Naruto. Come to think of it, I haven't seen him the whole day. I wonder if Kushina has. As he thought this, an explosion went off, startling Kushina awake. Minato, what's going on? There was just an explosion. Oh my god, where are the girls? Kushina asked frantically as she jumped up and quickly got dressed in some pants and a top and grabbed her weapons. Minato quickly did the same and the two of them rushed to the girls' rooms. Getting to their rooms, they found the girls shaking and awake with confused and fearful looks on their faces. Unknown to them, in their panicked haste, they fell back into their routine of easily forgetting their son. Ka-san? Tu-san? What's going on? What happened? Was that an explosion? Is the village under attack? The two girls shot off questions one after each other. It seems like it, but don't worry, angels. Tu-san and Ka-san will protect you. Kushina told the girls, comforting them as an Anbu showed up and started speaking to Minato. Kushina, let's go, we need it at the office. The village is going on lockdown for the next few days until a proper investigation is done. Let's go, we need to get to the bottom of this, and soon. After Minato said this, Kushina nodded and said goodbye to the girls, and they both disappeared in a yellow flash together. Naruto. After waiting a few minutes, he undid the henge and started running as fast as he could in the direction which was the borders of Fire Country as it had stated on the map he had with him. He still held his breath, hoping that the village will be put on lockdown for an investigation so he could get out of the country as fast and as safely as he could without being noticed. As he sprinted further away using his chakra to stick on the branches, he could not help but feel a bit of guilt from running away, but he pushed that aside. He needed to think about himself for a change. Hokage Tower. The people occupying the meeting room were in utter chaos and disorder, with clan heads and civilians shouting and fighting among each other, and that is the scene Minato and Kushina flashed into. The chaos only settled down by seeing their Hokage and his wife. Hokage-sama, Kushina-sama. What's going on? Are we being attacked? Have you caught anyone yet? Do you know who did this? These were the questions fired off by the civilian council members. One being especially loud was Haruno Mebuki, which made some of the more sensitive clan heads wince at the loudness. Silence. Firstly, it would seem like we are being attacked. Secondly, we do not know who the culprit is. Thirdly, what we do know is that the library, hospital, area around this tower and the market was targeted, other than that no other places have been bombed with explosive tags. This is a worrying factor, so the village will be on lockdown for the next few days until an investigation is done. Dismissed. After explaining this to the council, they accepted it and Minato and Kushina left to his office. Naruto. Naruto stood panting. He felt like he had been running forever, much longer than he could keep up. He pulled out the map and estimated that he was about halfway to the border of Fire Country, and like someone lifted a weight off his shoulders, he slumped over under the tree he was standing under. After all, he had been running right through the night, only taking short breaks every now and then. Soon he fell asleep under the tree hidden behind some of the bigger roots. 8 hours later. By the time Naruto woke up again, he could see by the sky and sun that it was probably late afternoon, and he mentally smacked himself out of his sheer forgetfulness with his situation. What if the village sent out Anbu already? And they could have caught him. What if they caught me? They'll drag me back and lock me up. I forgot about that. Naruto thought as he looked around for anything suspicious before pulling out a bottle of water and drinking some up. Then he put it away and stretched. It wasn't long before the sun set and he was on the move again, moving only as fast as his still sore muscles allowed him to. Konoha. Tsunade was stuck once again in the research lab looking over some new poisons that Shizune and her were trying to break down in various parts. She had heard the explosions and a Chunin had come running to Shizune and herself just to tell them not to worry and that for now the village was on lockdown. It made her angry to no end, but she had her duty along with Shizune in the research lab for future reference, and she understood that, which is why she ended up working along with Shizune to the bone for the next 3 days. However, on her desk back at the Senju compound there lied a not-so-innocent-looking envelope waiting to be opened and let out all its secrets. Naruto. 2 days had passed since he left Konoha, 2 hard days of running non-stop even when his muscles protesting, and now he was almost to the border. Just a few meters away from freedom, and in a fast sprint he crossed it as fast as he could. He was now on the border of sand. Suddenly the wide grin that stretched across his face twisted into one of pain, and he dropped to the ground in pain, clutching his head with both hands. He felt like his head would explode in a shower of gore, and he couldn't stop it. His scream of pain was cut off in his throat when he blacked out. 1 hour later, waking up to a splitting headache was something Naruto had become used to after all reading throughout the night about chakra arts had both its pros and cons. However, Naruto had the worst headache yet. His eyes hurt, ears hurt, and most of all he felt like he had been introduced to a hard book cover meeting his face. But checking out by feeling his face he could tell nothing was broken, so as he sat up, suddenly everything came rushing back to him. Mito, the Purple Rock, him being the chosen heir for the Uzumaki clan, their legacy, the prophecy that he didn't care about, and having his memories sealed and the reasons behind getting them sealed. He let out a shaky breath and looked up to the sky and closed his eyes in reminisce, completely understanding why this had been the right decision. Flashback. I'm going to start with the Uzumaki legacy. It all started back just before the 6 paths of Sage died. You see, the 6 parts of Sage had a dream to keep the world in peace, but he knew he was too old to continue doing that, so he passed his dream on to his sons, Indra and Asura. Indra was a prodigy from the start, however Asura was slow learning and was accused of having no talent. Yet as they grew older, Asura pushed and worked hard to learn the things he did and believed that love and friendship was the key to peace, while Indra never worked as hard as his younger brother and believed power and control is what was needed for peace. When their father died, he chose Asura for his successor because he too believed in love and friendship. However, Indra was enraged and jealous, so he was easily controlled by Black Zetsu, who also changed the table that spoke of the truth, which was passed on to Indra's descendants, the Uchiha. Indra had started a war with Asura in which their descendants carried on, not knowing why they fought in the first place. Asura's descendants, the Senju and Uzumaki, fought for many years against the Uchiha until Asura's reincarnation Hashirama Senju, my belated husband, was born and decided to start the village of Konoha with Madara, Uchiha Indra's reincarnation, who agreed for his people. They brought about peace to the lands once again until Madara grew jealous that Hashirama was chosen to be Kage and caused chaos. However, his clan abandoned him in his streak of jealousy because they wanted peace. So Hashirama and Madara faced off. However, Madara overstepped his boundaries and controlled the Kyuubi with his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. So in an act of desperation I used my special chakra chains to seal the Kyuubi within myself. Hashirama ended up winning and Madara apparently died, and Hashirama died in the war. Now once again the cycle of hatred is repeating itself, and according to tales you have been chosen to be Asura's reincarnation and Uchiha Sasuke as Indra's. Mito explained all this without pause, and Naruto's eyes widened a bit comically at the last bit. Me and Makoto Ka-san's younger son Sasuke? Itachi's brother? We gonna end up fighting? How? I don't understand. Why must he be that guy's reincarnation? Why am I Asura's reincarnation? Why? Naruto rambled on until Mito made him keep quiet with a look that made him quiet very quickly. It's just how it is. Not even we know how to predict who becomes the reincarnation. Yes, you might likely fight him, but then again, perhaps the cycle may be broken this time and free the souls of this endless hatred, but I don't know if it will really be possible, so that's not a standing possibility. However, now what I'm about to tell you is the Uzumaki legacy. Asura had 2 children after he had traveled the land and settled down with a young woman who ended up birthing these twins. One was a girl, the other a boy. Their names were Hitomi and Hiro. They both grew up watching their father and uncle fight and also took on their father's dreams. The girl, Hitomi, was talented in manipulation of the earth and could grow trees, make rivers and heal with chakra. The boy Hiro was talented in the art of sealing, swordplay, and possessed a special type of chakra. The two had married off and created their own clans, Senju by Hitomi and Uzumaki by Hiro. While fighting their cousins and distant cousins, Hiro created 2 katanas for himself to use, which was made with his chakra and the strongest metals known to man. One blade as black as a raven, the other as white as snow. Both grips were gold and blood red with 2 little rubes dangling on each end. They both bore the white Uzumaki swirl and had writing engraved on their blades. Later he created 4 other weapons. Also there is a prophecy that goes as such: The air of the whirlpool with a great burden will bring about a great change when the eye of the moon endangers the world. That's the prophecy. Mito took a breath after having spoken so much and let Naruto take in what she said. Then I will get stronger and prove to everyone I can do it. And I'll do it all without Minato and Kushina. What about these weapons? Where are they and how can I find them? And how do you know all this? Naruto asked and said determined get stronger and prove to himself and everyone he can do it without his family. However, Mito cut in quickly when she seen this. Naruto, don't let that be your goal, please. I have seen some go down a road like that and it's not pretty. Make your own goals and build bonds, make friends, try to be happy and overcome the grudge you hold for your birth family, make your own family with friends and allies. The weapons are all scattered around the elemental nations. However, Hiro's own twin katanas lie in an underwater cave at the bottom of Uzu's biggest whirlpool. You can also learn sealing by spending a few months in the Uzu ruins. I'm sure you will learn much. However, I have not been to Uzu since I was married to Hashirama, so I don't know how things are there. So be careful. There should also be a journal about the other weapons and how to find them. Also, Uzu is on an island in Nami no Kuni. And I know all this because it's all in the journal in the cave with the katanas. Once she was done telling him all this, she smiled lightly at the boy before her, who looked between amazement, curious and irritated. Okay, I'll try, but I dunno if I can after all they have done and all the times they ignored me for my sisters. So I can't promise, but I'll try and I'll find the cave with the katanas and that journal. And I will try to be happy as well as protect the people I care for, he said proudly, and she smiled once again, only wider than the last one. One more thing, there is a chamber where the most treasured things are held and no one knows about it other than the clan head and the heir. She then went on telling him about what happened to Kushina and how he should choose the right steps, all things only passed on from one clan head to the next, which put Naruto in a more somber mood when she told him that in Konoha there is a purple rock that contains most of her chakra and half of her soul, and that his memories will come back of this place with her as soon as he has chosen the right decision, which was leaving to get stronger and prove himself, but also not to act upon his grudge against his family and those who aided his sisters by snapping like he would if he continued in Konoha. Naruto sat listening to what was going on and what was going to happen when he gets sent back. I can't believe this. And no one knew this, only from one clan head to the next? And when I get back, my memories of this place will be sealed until I choose of my own will what my next steps will be, and if I don't choose the right one, my memories and my heir rights will be wiped clean like my mother? Also, there's a glowing purple rock that you sealed a lot of your chakra, including half of your soul in? And it will all come back to me the minute I make the right decision? Then now that you told me everything, I guess you're going to send me back? Naruto asked why was his life so troublesome. In the realm of the living, Shikamaru sneezed. Yes, but before that, remember what I said about the prophecy, and you will regain what you have lost, and remember you are the heir, so get stronger on your own terms. Now Naruto, are you ready to go back? Mito asked, and he nodded, remembering the prophecy she told him that he was a part of. After he nodded, Mito leaned forward and placed a kiss on I's forehead and watched him slowly get a blank and confused look before fading away. Flashback end. The dazed look in Naruto's eyes faded away slowly as he stood up and pulled out the map he made and looked it over briefly for Nami no Kuni, because that was his destination right now. To get to Uzu and find that twin katanas in the journal, then learn more about Fuinjutsu, the art of sealing, and also find and seal everything of value in Uzu into a scroll so no one can stumble across the land and just claim that which is not theirs. He put the map away and moved in the direction stated on the map. Konoha. Senju Tsunade was not a woman with time on her hands, because she was always busy with this and with that, and she only just got home, only to find an envelope on her desk signed by Naruto. So naturally, wanting to see why her son figure left a letter instead of coming to see her personally. After all, she did give him an estimate as to when she'll be free again after looking over poisons and finishing her paperwork. So she picked it up, yet as she opened it, a sense of dread filled her to the brim. To Tsunade Ka-san, if you are reading this, it means that 3 days has passed since I left the village. Which was the reasons there was explosions, that was because of me, to use as a distraction to get out of Konoha and Fire Country with pursuits. I am sorry to leave behind those who care for me, but after finding out my career and dreams have been crushed by my family and trying to hide it from me, I just can't stand that anymore. All the lies and hiding things from me, it was honestly the last straw for me. I just want to get away from it all. But don't worry about me, I will survive and I will keep my dreams, maybe someday I will see you and the others again. I love you and I will miss all of you a lot, and don't look for me. P.S. Tell Makoto Ka-san I'm sorry I won't be there when the baby is born. Love, Naruto. Tsunade was in tears as she read this letter over and over again. Words just could not find their way out her mouth and she let out a choked sob, dropping the letter and stumbling back just as Shizune opened the door. Tsunade didn't even realize Shizune had been knocking for the past few minutes on her door until she had opened the door and rushed to Tsunade asking what was wrong, but as the tears fell she could only stare at the letter on the floor. Shizune, seeing where her mentor's gaze was, she went to the letter and picked it up and read it and let out her own sob as tears fell and ran out the house and compound, heading to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower. Minato was currently in a meeting with the council discussing a few details about the attack 3 days ago. Jiraiya and Kushina stood to his sides as he addressed the clan heads who had to bring their wives along and the civilian heads who did the same. Itachi, Shishu, Kakashi and Anko stood in the shadows in their Anbu uniforms. So after looking through everything we have come to the conclusion that the attack, Minato never got to finish as Shizune knocked down the doors with brute strength that she hardly used and walked right up to him with tears falling from her eyes before slamming a letter down on his desk, almost breaking it. You miserable excuse of parents, how could you let this happen? This was shouted out by Shizune as she gripped his collar and pointed down at the letter. When Kushina came to pull her away she backhanded her and the mark quickly turning blue while everyone in the room was looking shocked. This is not the sweet soft Shizune they knew because she had a murderous aura around her. You want to know WHO caused the explosions? Read it out loud for everyone to hear. She screamed at him and he was so shocked he quickly obeyed her and picked up the letter to read it. To Tsunade Ka-san, if you are reading this it means that 3 days has passed since I left the village. Which was the reasons there was explosions, that was because of me to use as a distraction to get out of Konoha and Fire Country with pursuits. I am sorry to leave behind those who care for me, but after finding out my career and dreams have been crushed by my family and trying to hide it from me. I just can't stand it anymore, all the lies and hiding things from me, it was honestly the last straw for me. I just want to get away from it all, but don't worry about me, I will survive and I will keep my dreams, maybe someday I will see you and the others again. I love you and I will miss all of you a lot, and don't look for me. P.S. Tell Makoto Ka-san I'm sorry I won't be there when the baby is born. Love, Naruto. Minato only realized what he just read after he uttered his only son's name, and he also realized he still had a meeting going on. Minato, Kushina? What in the world is wrong with you? Your only son, my godson, Kami-sama, you have forsaken your own son. Jiraiya yelled at his disciple in anger and disapproval, completely forgetting there were others in the room because he was simply too angry. The Toad Sage briefly recalled figuring the Chosen One was his godson and not someone else because of the similar things that old Toad has said that reminded him of Naruto. The room quickly went into an uproar when everything finally settled in. Shizune still wore her angry face, so did a very pregnant Makoto, while Katsume and Bawako stood back with deep frowns on their faces. Meanwhile Kushina was crying as she backed up against the wall and slid down holding her head in her hands. Things just went from bad to terrible. If only your son meant as your daughters do to you, maybe he'd still be here. Makoto yelled at Kushina while the tears fell furiously down her face and her pale skin was flushed red with anger. Minato and Kushina felt their own tears fall with shock at this revelation, which would soon be one of many to come. It's been 2 weeks since Naruto left Konoha and he was finally stopping for another rest after all, since he'd been trying to hide his trail by moving along Suna's borders to get to Nami no Kuni, which was on the opposite side of Konoha. It had been truly tiring, and after so long he hoped to get to Uzu no Kuni fast. Going around Konoha was not fun for the Uzumaki and he had to take a break every few hours even while hiding and trying not to get caught by Konoha or Suna, let alone any other shinobi. Yes, civilization. Finally, Naruto exclaimed as he seen walls to a small village near to Nami. His clothes were smeared with dirt and had tears here and there. He also had sand laying in his hair, yet he wore the biggest grin for the first time in forever. He was so happy to finally be able to get a rest to relax his sore and tired muscles from all the running and moving around Konoha and invading scouts and teams to get him back. So as Naruto made his way to the small village near Nami, not knowing the dangers that awaits him that would change him in many ways but also earn him a new friend who would accompany him on his journey for the next few years. Konoha. Back at the Namikaze compound, Kushina sat at the kitchen table staring blankly at the empty white wall next to the stove. Her eyes were red and puffy, and her face was swollen from crying so much. She wore a depressed and a dazed-out look as if remembering something of the past. Flashback. After the letter was revealed to Kushina and Minato by Shizune, and they got over the shock of the letter. Minato made haste and dismissed the council that was angry and in a panic so that they could talk more in private about Naruto. So wiping any tears away, he quickly flashed all of them away, which included Shizune, Jiraiya, himself and his wife. They next appeared in the Namikaze family's living room. "Shizune, please tell us what's going on. Why would our son leave? He has everything he needs here." Minato rambled while Kushina blew her nose in a tissue. Jiraiya stood against the wall and watched with a frown on his face. He was doing his best to control his emotions after that outburst he had earlier. "Shizune, I think you should tell them all of their mistakes because clearly they have yet to realize it on their own, even with their shock of their only son they have forsaken and pushed away, making him run away." Jiraiya's voice, which was strained with anger and pain, called Shizune out of her rage-filled thoughts and making her nod slowly and wiping away her angry and sad-filled tears. "Shizune, please tell us the truth about my baby boy, please?" Kushina cried harder, begging Shizune with her red-rimmed eyes and flushed face from crying so long. Minato walked up to his wife and hugged her while keeping his own tears at bay. Kushina might put up a tough persona, but she has a fragile heart. Naruto. He was always smart, very observant for a child his age. From the moment I laid my eyes on him, I knew he was going to be something great in the future. Since he was born, we've noticed you always overlooked him for the girls. We thought you'd start including him when he got older, but our hopes were dashed when you ignored him more and more, especially after he told you that every time the girls slept next to him, he was getting hurt. Shizune paused as tears filled her eyes once more and her throat choked on the words. She looked at Jiraiya before continuing. "Tsunade-sama and I checked him out after overhearing you talk about him complaining. We found some kind of chakra that wasn't his in his system. It was stretching his chakra coils and it was doing something else like poison. We were going to tell you, but then we heard that you didn't want to hear about anything about that anymore. Tsunade-sama tried to make you think, but you brushed it off, so he kept quiet. That's when your daughters and every other child started pranking and blamed it on Naruto. You never heard him out, always believing the girls and others over your son. Finally he made friends with Itachi, Hinata and Neji. They couldn't always be there with him, but they were good to him when they seen him. The Uchihas, Tsunade-sama, Jiraiya-sama and I become something of a family, but we were always busy because there is so much we all have to do around the village. Everything was going wrong and none of us could make you see because Naruto made us promise not to say anything to you. Despite all of these problems of favoring the girls, he managed to study and teach himself how to do jutsu, and he did it with his brilliant mind. But now he's gone all because you couldn't tell him the truth." Shizune was back to a sobbing mess at this point. Kushina was no better as she and Minato finally realized all the problems they caused by favoring Noriko and Nanami over Naruto. "That pain he was talking about, do you have anything left over from the observations you gave him? I think I might know what that pain was caused by if it happened every time the girls slept next to him, but I have to see before anything else. The girls might have been using him as a chakra rod for the Kyuubi. If that is true, then the next time the fox gives its hosts a surge to make them stronger to use its chakra when they older, there might be big problems, especially if this has been happening since they babies." Jiraiya's voice cut through the silence and Minato and Shizune's eyes widened. "We drove our own son away, Minato. Oh Kami, please Naruto, come back. Come back, we'll try and fix things." Kushina cried out to the heavens while struggling in her husband's arms, which tightened around her as he too cried. His wife finally collapsed against him, sobbing loudly. "Shizune, let's go, we'll come back another time. Let them think for now, let's go check on Tsunadeheim and see how she's doing." This was said as Jiraiya helped her stand and she nodded, and both of them left the compound, leaving broken parents behind. End of flashback. Kushina went to the cabinet and pulled out a bottle of sake and poured some out for herself with trembling hands and sat back down on the chair by the table so she drowned the first glass in a few seconds, that it would make Tsunade proud. She wanted to drown all her problems and mistakes. Later they would talk to Noriko and Nanami about their punishment and hopefully about the chakra situation, but not before she slapped the lights out of them. Naruto reached the entrance of the village and immediately he felt something was wrong. It was a really small village and it also looked really poor. Walking slowly into the village he seen a bunch of guys surrounding a woman. She had short black hair and she was crying out about something or someone, but he couldn't hear what she was saying. Naruto crept slowly away. As much as he'd love to help, he couldn't because he wasn't strong enough, especially since he'd been running and hiding so long and he didn't want to make things worse than they already were. As he tried to creep away he suddenly hit something hard and he turned around only to come face to face with one of the bandits, possibly the leader of the group. "Hey boys, look what we found. Let's see if he has anything on him." The dark brown-headed, bearded leader of the bandits boomed with a laugh, lifting Naruto off the ground by the scruff of his neck. He eyed the black bag on Naruto's back and he grinned with a glint in his eyes. Konoha. A few days ago. Noriko and Nanami sat in the family room. Their parents sat opposite them and stared at them unwavering. Nanami shifted uncomfortably on the couch next to her sister. The whole situation was weird for them. Their parents never stared at them that way ever. It's more of a Naruto situation because he was always the one in these types of situations, not them, so it was unsettling. "Noriko, Nanami, we called you today because we have found out something. We have found out that you have wronged your brother many times in the past and it's sad that we have just found out about this now only. So me and your mother have come to a suitable punishment for you too." Minato said solemnly to his daughters and their eyes widened while his face betrayed no emotions. Noriko was the first one to blow a gasket. "What? We did nothing to that loser. He's the one always complaining and pulling pranks. Not us. Why don't you punish that idiot? Naruto, where are you? Come take your punishment. How dare he say anything wrong about us?" Noriko spat out in rage, her face red as a tomato with anger and hate. "Snap, snap, Naruto's not here. He ran away because of us. I never raised you like this. Who are you? You are no daughters of mine. My daughters would love their brother, not hate him. They'd care for him, not blame things on him. No children of mine would use their sibling as a chakra rod. How dare you? You two have brought dishonor to our family. And so you will be punished accordingly. After all, you are two of the people who has made him run away. Now we'll never see him again thanks to this family." Kushina snapped at Noriko and Nanami after slapping them across their faces. Noriko's mouth was agape. A purple bruise was forming on her right cheek and a similar bruise was forming on Nanami's left cheek. "Kushina, let's go. We have more important things to do, like get Kakashi's report on the search for our son. Leave them to rethink their actions towards their brother. When we get back we'll give them their punishment," Minato told his wife, pulling her away. Soon they both left and the girls were alone. Nanami crumbled first. "Oh Noriko, nay. What have we done?" Nanami cried out with wide eyes as the tears finally pooled over, as if it would help the situation they were in. Noriko crumbled next into a pile of limbs with wide eyes, as if only now realizing the damage done on their family. Not in their entire lives have they ever thought their brother will run away because of what they did. This was truly a wake-up call for them. Nanami-chan. I don't know, I'm so sorry." Noriko whispered, putting a hand on her cheek, touching the bruise and looking over at her sister's forlorn expression. She hugged her sister and pat her back. "I really dunno. I'm so sorry Naruto ni. I'm so sorry," she kept whispering. Naruto, our favorite blonde boy with black streaks, was running to get away, but that wasn't working out well for him because his muscles were all sore and tired from running for so long in the past few days, and that's what made him stumble and fall, which unsurprisingly led to him begin loomed over by the bandits' leader once again. This man was really full of himself. "Let's see you try that stunt again, you brat. Boys, I want him dead by the hour. I won't allow some snot-nosed brat stop my raids. We have women to use and men to kill and beat, so let's get this shit out the way. Now." The leader yelled at his men with anger and watched satisfied as his men scrambled to do his bidding. His smirk widened as he watched his men crowd around the boy, beating him before killing him. However, as Naruto's eyes widened, inside his body his blood was pumping hard and rushing along with his chakra running to his eyes. The different cords behind his eyes began shifting and changing at a fast rate. For a moment Naruto's vision went black and all he could think and imagine was the tall, inhuman figures looming over him trying to kill him with weapons. Not a minute later, when his vision returned, he made eye contact with one of the guys coming to beat then kill him. The guy froze up and his weapon, which was a spike, fell upright with him falling straight onto it. Blood. The guy's eyes were wide and unseeing without life left in him. Naruto's eyes widened and made eye contact with some of the other bandits, and each of them fell either into their weapons or unconscious. At first Naruto sat confused, then he realized that he was unconsciously releasing chakra into his eyes. His eyes rolled back into his head and he passed out. He just realized he had killed today using genjutsu from his eyes. Konoha. Minato sat behind his desk reading the reports Suna Shinobi and Kakashi gave him. He let out a frustrated sigh. Really, his son was too smart for his own good. Where was he heading anyway? That was the question running in the Hokage's head as he reread the reports over again and again, checking if he missed something or anything. He put down the reports and massaged his temples. He could feel a migraine coming on slowly. He felt like such a bad Hokage since he can't even find his own son who was hiding. Flashback. Sensei. I'm sorry, but we can't find Naruto anywhere. We even had help from Suna Shinobi that was doing border scouting and we still turned up with nothing. Pakun and his pack of dogs also looked, but we still got nothing. All we know is that he had been on the borders of Suna and Konoha about 2 weeks ago. I'm really sorry, Minato-sensei. We all tried really hard. Kakashi told him and set down the reports for him to look through. End of flashback. Naruto. Naruto was found by the young woman who was the one crying out about something or someone back at the village. After none of the bandits came back, she got worried for the little boy, so she went to look for him to see if he was okay, but she had never in her life expected to see all the bandits unconscious or dead laying on the ground all around the young blonde boy with black streaks who had saved her by pure accident. She was slightly horrified, so she went to check out the boy if he was okay or not. Konoha. Noriko lay upon her bed staring at her ceiling in deep thought about what had happened a few days ago and how she got slapped. She thought about the brother she had made miserable and the parents Nanami and her unconsciously manipulated into neglecting said brother. Noriko was at a loss for what to do. Her brother left, and it was all Nanami and her fault. She felt so helpless. Sure, she didn't completely love her brother and she was jealous of him, but she never saw herself as a bad person. I wish I could change what I have caused, but I can't. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air of her room. A few tears slipped out her eyes as she now saw herself as the monster who tormented her brother's dreams and stood in way of his goals. She wanted to change that image, but she knew it was true and she could only try and atone for her deeds. It will be Naruto's choice to forgive her and them when they see him again. Naruto. The young woman decided to take him back to her village and into her home because she couldn't let the child lay there where he had been laying between the bandits and all the blood. When she got home, her younger sister, who was about 6, was waiting for her by their kitchen window open slightly. Tasuki Ne-chan, I saw those bandits harassing you. And that boy my age stopped them. The little girl yelled. She had blood-red hair and dark forest green eyes. It was obvious that the two sisters didn't share any resemblance, but that didn't mean much to either sister because even though they were clearly not blood-related, they were just as close as sisters normally are. What? You were watching that? Oh, Akari-chan, I'm so sorry you had to see that. But now we have to attend to this poor boy and help him. The now identified Tasuki told her sister, who only now noticed the boy in her arms, who drew the attention away from her big sister when those bandits were worrying her. Her eyes looked at him curiously and in slight wonder at his bravery. That's the same boy from earlier. What happened to him, Ne-chan? Did he get hurt? Did those bandits hurt him? Akari shot out questions as she ran to help her Oni-chan with the boy. They brought him to Akari's room and put him on the bed before Tasuki told Akari to get a bucket of warm water and a cloth to wipe off the blood and dirt he had on him. They tentatively cleaned him and took all his clothes except his underpants to wash and mend so he can wear them again when he wakes up. For now though, Tasuki had Akari watch him while she cooked them some food for dinner and hung up the black-streaked blonde's clothes to get dry properly. They also found his black bag and cleaned it off and putting it one side in Akari's room. The next morning, Naruto stirred in the bed and his messy black-streaked hair fell out of his face to show his violet amethyst eyes opening slowly and blinking in confusion before realization kicked in and he remembered what happened. He turned deathly pale and he felt like throwing up. Just then Akari and Tasuki walked in and rushed to him, seeing as he was now awake, and sat him up, then gave him a glass of water. Hey Whisker-kun, how are you feeling? What's your name? Why did you have blood on you? Did the bandits leave? Why were you alone? Where's your family? Why weren't they with you? Do you have siblings? Why are you looking so pale? Are you sick? Is your tummy sore? Your eyes are so pretty. Tasuki Oni-chan, isn't his eyes pretty? Akari interrogated him without giving him a chance to respond before shooting off another question. Akari-chan, let him answer one at a time. I'm sure he is trying to sort out his thoughts. Tasuki reprimanded her adopted sister with a sigh while shaking her head in amusement with her sister's outbursts. Akari had the decency to blush in embarrassment at getting scolded in front of the boy they were nursing yesterday afternoon, who had finally woken up. My name's Naruto. Thanks for helping me even though I didn't deserve it. Naruto said softly, letting his hair shade his eyes that were full of tears of remorse, remembering he killed those men with his eyes unknowingly with genjutsu. He felt so ashamed of himself, thinking that Katsume would be so angry and ashamed of him for killing the bandits with the art of genjutsu that her clan used. Naruto-kun, you didn't do anything wrong. It was those bad men who were bandits that raids our village that were wrong. You saved me from disgrace when those men went after you instead of me. Tasuki argued with a frown at his lifeless-like attitude, and Akari nodded besides her with a huge smile on her face. I killed them. I didn't mean to. My fear, they looked into my eyes. I didn't mean to use genjutsu on them. I was so scared and it just happened. From my eyes. I was so confused. But I felt my chakra in my eyes, and I just knew. Naruto said before he broke down in tears for what he did, while the two girls were shocked at what he told them. They didn't know how to make him feel better, but they didn't look at him differently either. Naruto-kun. That is so unfortunate that this happened to you at such a young age. I don't know if this will help, but those men are the same ones who killed our parents in front of us a year ago. They enjoyed hurting our parents and laughed when they stabbed them to death. So they were bad people, and if you killed them with this genjutsu that you accidentally used with your eyes in your fearful state of mind, then you saved us all from their wicked nature of killing for fun. To cry and feel the weight of doing something wrong means that you showing remorse for what you've done. My birth parents told me this, and they were both ninja once, but they died by the hands of ninja when I was 9. I'm 21 now, and I still believe in what they said even after I was adopted into this family at the age of 11, and they always cared for me as if I was their own daughter, even when Akari was born from my adoptive parents 5 years ago, and when they died by the hands of those bandits last year, then entrusted me with their only blood-related daughter. Tasuki told her story to Naruto, who listened quietly with wide eyes. I'm sorry Tasuki-san, Akari-san. Thank you for sharing your story with me and making me see clearer. I understand now that is the life of a shinobi. I will keep your words in my heart, Naruto said, wiping away his tears. Even though he still felt guilty and ashamed, he knew that he'd have to figure out everything as he goes along, but he also knew he couldn't mope around because he had goals that he had set for himself and he wasn't about to stray from his path. Naruto-kun, are you okay now? You're not so pale anymore. And your eyes don't look so sad anymore. Will you stay with us, Naruto-kun? Akari lightened the room with her questions, and Naruto found himself smiling lightly. Tasuki just shook her head in amusement of her adopted sister, who had started grinning at him again, the somber mood getting to her. Hi, I'm feeling better now, Akari-san. But I can't stay with the two of you. You have done enough for me, and I must leave again to get stronger so I can see my goals through to the end. Naruto told them, looking down at his hands in his lap, bowing his head in gratitude to the two sisters who had looked after him while he had been unconscious. Huh? But you can't leave just yet. You just came here yesterday. Please don't leave so soon, Naruto-kun. Tasuki Nade-chan, tell him he can't leave yet. Akari nagged with a pout on her face, looking at Tasuki, who patted her head with a sigh and smiled softly down at her younger sister. I'm sure Naruto-kun needs to rest up for at least a week before he leaves, so until then he'll be staying with us and we'll take care of him, and I'm sure the two of you can play around and become friends before he has to leave again. Is that acceptable? Tasuki told her sister while Naruto's mouth went agape, and Akari nodded happily at her sister with a wide grin. Yay! We gonna have so much fun, and I'm gonna show you all around the village, and then we can play games and we can go swim, and oh, Tasuki Nade-chan makes awesome food, and we gonna make you all better before you leave again, and oh, everything is gonna be so awesome, and Akari never got to finish as Tasuki cut her off. And we going to leave so Naruto-kun can get some rest and something to eat since I'm sure he's famished and in need of something to eat. Say bye to Naruto-kun for now. Tasuki laughed as her sister's face turned tomato red and puffed out her cheeks before nodding and saying she'll see him later in the day to ask some questions again. Konoha. Minato punched the training post at his training field in his compound with frustration and stress. His knuckles were bloody and his clothes were stuck to him from sweat and his blue eyes were ringed red from tears and he collapsed onto the ground running a hand through his blonde hair with his eyes closed. He felt so angry at himself because of his family that was falling apart into tiny pieces and he felt he was utterly helpless to do anything about it. His only son was crippled because of him. His only son had suffered negligence because of him. His only son left because of him. He only had one son. And now he was gone. Because of him. And they couldn't find him anywhere. Some father I am. Senju compound. Different pictures of a smiling blonde boy with violet amethyst eyes littered the floors everywhere. He was in every picture with different poses. Empty sake bottles littered the floors in piles here and there. In many of the pictures 5 women were always at least once in every picture. One with blonde hair, one with dark brown hair, one with dark navy blackish blue hair, one with graying brown hair and one with dark graying hair. If names were to be added to each of them it would go in this order. Tsunade, Shizune, Makoto, Katsume and Bawako. In the lounge we would find 2 of the 5 women laying drunk on the floor, this being Tsunade and Shizune. Hospital. Bawako sat in the head medic office behind the desk. She wore a frown as she looked over reports and files for the glowing purple rock that rests in the research lab, which is the size of a boulder that is utterly impenetrable. After all, they tried everything to break that thing apart. Something nagged at the back of her head that this was familiar somehow. She let out a sigh and put down the papers. She looked out the window onto the Hokage monument and gazed at her late husband's face sculptured upon the mountain before her eyes slid to the 4th face and her frown deepened as she thought about the certain little blonde that looked almost identical with his blonde hair to the man she had lost much respect for. Everything so far had gone wrong when the girls were given their way more than. She turned away from the window because she had better things that had to be done, important things. It would be pointless to ponder and point fingers at others. Kurama clan compound. Oba-san? Are you okay? Do you want some tea? Can I do anything for you, Oba-san? A little red-headed girl with bright dark brown eyes asked the elder sitting by the window watching the birds. This little girl was the elder's granddaughter and also a girl who had a lot of raw potential and enhanced genjutsu prowess that could use genjutsu that affect the body or bodies of the person or people her genjutsus are used on. Hi, I'm fine, Yakumo-chan. Just thinking on a few things I hope to see in the future if I live until then. Why don't you get me the tea for now then, my child? This old bat is terribly parched and we wouldn't want me coughing my lungs up on this beautiful redwood floors now, would we? The elder asked her granddaughter, who immediately shook her head and rushed off to the kitchen for the traditional tea set. The old woman's honey-colored eyes wrinkled at the corners as they sparkled with mythical amusement with a pinch of sadness hidden in her eyes. Katsume Kurama couldn't deny that the future would be a sight to behold if she lived long enough. Uchiha compound. The head of the clan and his wife sat outside in silence. Neither spoke their thoughts, yet both spoke their mind. As confusing as it would seem, it has been like this for the past few days between the couple. This is the scene their son, Itachi, walked into with his heavy heart. Makoto glanced at her eldest child, as did Fugaku. Both looked questionably at him, awaiting his report. Itachi-chan, please tell me you've got good news for us. Please? Makoto pleaded to her son with tears in her eyes while Fugaku just held her hand in support with his own. Itachi inwardly winced. Naruto leaving had taken its toll on both his mother and father, including him. He took a breath. He might as well inform them and get it over with for now. He hated seeing his mother like this, especially since she is pregnant. Ka-san, Tu-sama. It is to my utter disappointment to inform you that we have still found absolutely nothing with regards to Naruto-kun's whereabouts, and for now Minato-sama has had to decrease the search for a time being. We just know that there had been signs he was on Suna's borders, but furthermore nothing else has been found. I am sorry to disappoint. Itachi spoke to them in a soft but firm tone that held respect. Makoto bowed her head and whispered her thanks to her son while Fugaku sighed and nodded in defeat. Despite being the clan head, he had his moments that he could care less about composure and status. Itachi took that as his cue to leave his mother and father alone again. Namikaze compound. Nanami sat by the koi pond and looked down at her reflection. Her cheek still stung as if the bruise that had healed up was still there from a few days ago, but she guessed it was just one of those things. Nanami watched as the fishes swam across her reflection in the pond, and her thoughts started wandering to that of her only brother who left them because they had all been so terrible to him. Noriko and herself had been the main causes, she was sure of that. After all, they had treated him like trash, and now look at where it has gotten them. Naruto ni, I wish I could apologize, but I can't because I know I was jealous and I still am. Everyone saw you as a coming protege, but Noriko, and I didn't like that. I am ashamed that we always were so evil to you, but the next time we see each other I will apologize deeply for our family's actions towards you, but I don't expect you to forgive us. I know everyone else will, but I don't, because even though we will try to be better, we will never fully succeed because this is who we are. Nanami's thoughts were deep and very intelligent, but then again, it's expected when your father was a protege. Naruto. Our black-streaked blonde lay awake staring deeply at the ceiling at the house of the two girls he'd befriended accidentally. He thought on everything so far that he had done. From the perfect escape plan succeeding to the words of Tasuki-san after he killed those bandits, and Akari-san's total look over of what he'd done even if it was accidental. Both of these girls had given him much to think over for a while, and he needed to start training again. He didn't know what to make of the dark-headed woman with short hair and gray eyes. Tasuki-san was emotionally stronger than anyone he'd ever seen, and he could only hope to one day be the same. Yet he wondered how she managed it all, because not only did her biological parents die by an enemy, her adoptive parents died in front of her, and she is helpless to do anything other than trying to protect their biological daughter. Akari-san was another mystery on her own. The girl his age was so bubbly and upbeat even though she witnessed her parents' death. He wondered what made her keep being happy despite the terrible thing of watching your parents die before you at the tender age of 5. She was simply at ease with everything, and you could see she took after her adopted sister. Naruto sighed and closed his eyes as his brain tried to work out how he had managed to use genjutsu through his eyes, but unfortunately for him he could only come up with one answer, and that would be that the chemicals he had used have caused this, and now he could only wonder what other changes the chemicals did to his body. Unknown to the violet-eyed boy, this had all been the doing of the green chakra that had become part of him and his chakra system. Konoha. Hyuga compound. Hinata sat quietly in the garden with Neji. Her mother, who would normally sit with her, was busy because she was pregnant and due to give birth in 5 months' time. Hinata's fingers moved slowly as she made a flower crown. Neji sat to her left side and watched her with clear moon-colored eyes. Hinata let out a long huff of air when her crown broke again for the 4th time. She had been trying to take her mind off of recent things, but she couldn't help it. Hinata-sama? Is everything okay? Are you getting another vision? Or are you thinking on something troubling? Neji asked as politely as he could while looking at her questionably. Hinata looked up at the pale blue sky. Not a cloud in sight, and the sun shone brightly as if all was happy and perfect. She turned away from the sky and looked at her cousin. Neji-ni-san. I can't help it, and I keep thinking about Naruto-kun and the reasons he left us all. I miss seeing him around us. But I can tell without a doubt that we will see him again in the future. Hinata's words rung in the air, carrying away all its secrets. She looked at Neji and smiled. Unknown place. The same man as before sat with a book and on the title Diary of Uzumaki Kushina. He chuckled gleefully and his dark eyes could be seen glinting wickedly. A door on the side of this dark room opened, sending a light in the room, and you could now make out the color of his eyes. They were a dark purple, almost black. A wicked grin spread across his lips, for the only features shown in the light were his lips and in dark purple eyes. A tall, lean figure walked in the room with file. The figure kneeled on the floor in a deep bow. My lord, I have all the data collected together just like you asked of me. There were no problems on the way either. I hope you are satisfied? The figure, now identified as male by his deep voice, spoke in a respectful tone to the other man that was in the room. A sinister laugh was heard before a sound of liquid hitting the floors and walls was heard, followed by a thumping sound on the floor. Glowing purple eyes peered down at the dead man on the floor. Indeed I am. A few pieces have yet to move on this chessboard. Our favorite mysterious male voice of malice was heard as it rung throughout the hallways and the candles flickered. Glowing purple eyes flashed in sick, fascinated amusement at the dead body before him and his thoughts about his plans for the future. 3 weeks had passed since Naruto first met Tasuki and Akari, who later introduced him to the rest of the villagers as the person who got rid of the bandits that were raiding the village. The village itself was nice, they had a few shops and 1 or 2 restaurants. The villagers were very friendly and kind to him, or maybe it was because he saved them from the bandits who raided the town frequently. Despite that, Naruto enjoyed being in the village itself with all its people. The villagers had at first been hesitant because he was so young, but soon accepted it as fact and praised him, calling him their little hero. The village children all wanted to be his friends and he accepted their friendships with a smile. However, every night for the first week he had sat up thinking upon everything he had done so far, and when he went to sleep he was plagued by nightmares until one night Akari started helping him get over his night terrors. However, nothing was as terrifying as the situation he currently found himself in. "Akari-chan, please stop crying. Tasuki Nade-chan, what do I do? Please help me. I dunno what to do. What should I do?" Tasuki Nade-chan. Naruto was currently being used as a tissue for poor Akari-chan, who was utterly distraught over one fact, and that is he had to leave in a day or so to continue to Uzu, and she didn't want him to go. So she was currently begging him to stay with her or take her with him, and he just couldn't remove the crying girl from his shirt. Whether it be from manners or from lack of strength, he wasn't quite sure. Naruto-kun. I'm sure you can figure out what to do. You are a smart boy, aren't you? Use your intelligence. Anyway, see you two later. I'll be at the market. I have some things to buy, so be good children and behave yourselves while I'm gone. And with that, Tasuki left him to the horror that was a snotty, sobbing Akari. Naruto stared at the door in horror when Tasuki left. He began sweating fast. He would be turned blue soon, he knew, by Akari's death grip around his chest, because he couldn't even breathe properly. It was as if he was trying to strangle him to death and not actually begging him to stay. "Naruto-kun, please don't go. Stay here, or take me with. Help me. Naruto-kun, help." Konoha, the blonde Hokage, sat behind his desk looking over paperwork and mission reports. He had been slacking off just a bit since his son ran away from Konoha. 3 weeks ago he sent out a message to all the ninja villagers in the elemental nations stating if they see his son they must immediately notify him and keep his son until someone from Konoha fetches him. That was all he could do now, that and waiting. Namikaze compound. 2 girls sat together on a bench in the gardens of their compound. Not a word was said between them, but enough was thought. A number of thoughts ran through their heads. The main one they shared was the fact that they had to be put into a coma so that their bodies could survive the chakra surges the Kyuubi was giving them. Flashback. Ka-san, where are we going? To-san, what's going on? Nanami questioned in her confusion. Noriko, who was walking besides her, looked at their father for an answer since none came from their mother. Minato just sighed, seeing how Kushina wasn't going to answer their questions. Since she was doing her best to speak to them as little as possible as punishment for both the girls and herself as their mother. "We going to a special camber so that we can put the 2 of you in a coma so that we can force the Kyuubi's chakra to surge throughout your bodies so that when the time comes neither of you will die from using its chakra. Do not argue with this is for the best for both of you and the village, since you had decided to force your brother through the surges you were supposed to go through. Be happy. The only thing we doing is not allowing you to train for a year and a half for doing what you did and acting how you did." With that, Minato ended the conversation with no room for arguments. End of flashback. Naruto. Our favorite black-streaked blonde boy sat on the bed he had been using since he got there. His next stop would be Uzu. He felt sad to leave Tasuki and Akari, who has been very good to him. He wished that they would be able to come with him to the Uzu ruins. However, he knew he couldn't ask them to leave their home here, especially since his future journeys will possibly be dangerous. The room door opened and Tasuki walked in with a small sad smile on her face. She placed a bundle of clothes she washed that belonged to him on the bed as she sat next to him. "Naruto-kun, Akari doesn't want you to leave us. I won't say stay here with us because I know there is something you wish to fulfill. However, I would like to offer you a companion on your journey. I won't be able to join you, but I believe Akari would be delighted to travel and train with you. She doesn't wish for her Oni-chan to be alone and face dangers by himself. She came to me earlier to plead with me to allow her to go with you, and I said I'll only agree if you agree. So Naruto-kun, would you like Akari to join you?" Tasuki grinned when she seen his face brighten up with a shocked look and a grin following it. Just then a red tornado burst into the room. Naruto-kun, please can I come with you? Take me with. I want to help you Oni-chan. Akari yelled as she threw herself at Naruto, nearly choking him in the process while she used her best puppy dog eyes on him. Naruto however just pulled her off himself and put a frown on his face and crossed his arms before shaking his head as if to say no. Her face fell quickly and tears formed in her eyes while her lips stick out. No Akari-chan, I would not like to have you join me on my trip to Uzu and wherever else. I would love you to join me and keep me company. And as a training partner. Naruto said with a happy tone and a small smile on his face, but his face was soon turning blue with lack of oxygen because Akari hugged him tightly again in a death grip. Yay, thank you Naruto-kun. Tasuki-chan, he said yes. He said yes. Yay, hooray, when can I pack? Tasuki-chan, what should I take with me? I can take a bag right Naruto-kun? Akari was shooting off questions and doing happy dances everywhere, making Naruto grin and Tasuki laugh. Konoha, Tsunade, you can't be serious. You want to leave for half a year. What if something happens? Sorry Tsunade, but I can't allow you to go again on a drinking and gambling break. If this is to do with my son, and I think it is. What if we find him hurt or something and you're not here to help? Things can go very wrong if you aren't here to help us Tsunade. Minato stated firmly. He was not going to let this woman leave so suddenly. Whenever she pleases, she should know that they needed her medical expertise in the village. How dare you? I've done nothing but good for you in this village. I saved countless lives and helped birth your children. One of them which you never even noticed until now. You also seem to forget I'm a Sanin and we have permission from the Fire Lord to roam the elemental nations without restrictions as long as we don't partake as high crimes against the nations. So as a matter of fact you can't keep me here. Tsunade's voice shook with fury as she shook her fist and smashed the desk Minato was seated behind. His face fell for a split second before he sighed and sat back in his chair with a stern look on his face. Fine, you may leave for the 6 months and do what you please, however should we need you back here you have to come back. That's all I ask, otherwise, look out for Naruto. Minato said. He got up from his chair as Tsunade left and stood by the window looking over Konoha. He didn't even know what to do anymore. Everything was just going wrong and a lot of it was his own fault. Naruto. It was finally the day Naruto would set out to Uzu and now he had a companion to boot. He was both happy and sad, happy for having someone on his journey with him but sad to go from the village. To him this was strange because when he ran away from Konoha he didn't really feel sad. Sure he felt a twig of sadness because he'd miss Tsunade and the others who cares for him, but now it was a different story with this village. He might be a very intelligent child, but when it came to his feelings he got confused and lost. Akari was standing on Naruto's right side with her own backpack. She wore a short green dress and black ninja sandals that Naruto borrowed her. She also had her up in a ponytail. Akari was bouncing with excitement and wore a huge smile on her face. She was really happy to go with Naruto Oni-chan on his journey to Uzu and all the other places he was going to. The villagers were all gathered around and Tasuki was standing right in the front of the crowd of people. She was smiling brightly and the sun was shining in the background. They were all at the village entrance to see Naruto and Akari off on their journey. Some of the children looked a bit jealous of the two of them. Now Naruto, I want you two to be careful, okay? Don't put yourselves in unnecessary danger. Tasuki told him in a playful tone, knowing that it was very likely that they would get into trouble, especially since Akari was going with because she is like a very curious kitten. Tasuki could only hope that they didn't die or get too hurt. Okay Tasuki-chan. I promise to protect Akari from any trouble. We'll come visit again, Naruto said with conviction. Akari pulled her tongue out at Tasuki and she rolled her eyes. Naruto smiled at the two of them and their actions. Konoha. Hinata practiced her katas with Neji while her father watched them in contemplation. The clan head thought about the recent events with the Hokage's son, Naruto. This made so much problems since his daughter's gift showed her troublesome things and she was constantly worrying about her only other friend who happened to be Naruto. Hinata, that's enough today. The two of you may leave for now. Hisashi told the two children who just finished off a set of katas. They both bowed and excused themselves quietly like they were taught to. This left the clan head by himself drinking green tea on the patio, letting him continue thinking about the problems. Hyuga compound Hinata's room. Neji-san. Don't tell Oto-sama, but I had a vision about Naruto-kun. He was standing at huge red gates at a village entrance, but the gates and walls looked damaged and run down, but at the top there was a sign like our village sign, only it was the Uzumaki symbol. I I think I know where Naruto-kun is going, and in my vision there was a red-headed girl too. Hinata said excitedly to Neji with a smile on her face. Neji wore a face of shock before he also smiled. And where is he going? Uzu no Taisho, the home of the Uzumaki clan. Let's not tell anyone then, since it was his choice to leave. I won't, Ni-san. Let's train hard to see him again then, Ni-san. Yes, let's do so, Hinata-sama.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.